Welcome to our regular council meeting of July 24th. That looks like the place to be on this evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And council, could we please have someone move forward for adoption the minutes of July 10th, Committee of the Whole, Regular Council and Special Meeting, please. Councillor Holmes, thank you. Councillor Peak, all in favor? Thank you. Carried. Okay, we need a motion to...
It's hard to hear. Could we turn it up a bit, please?
Okay, I'll speak. I may be turning away. I'll try not to do that, okay? Okay, a resolution to adopt this evening's agenda, please. Do we have any amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do. We have two late items. The first late item is a delegation from the Riga Festival. I'd like to slot them in as item 5.1, please.
Yes.
And then there's an item on equipment purchase for the RCMP. If we could put that under new business, item 13.2, and the CAO will speak to that.
Okay,
Thank you.
So could we have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda as amended, please? Councillor Barkwell, Councillor Peak, thank you. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, moving ahead to 4.0, public and statutory hearings. I'd like to call a hearing to order, please, for zoning bylaw amendment 5010 Croyle Avenue, bylaw number 2017-020. I will be introducing our planner, and I'll ask if there's any items of correspondence. And I'm asking the planner to move ahead, please, and explain this.
Please do the outline of the public hearing process first.
Oh, first, okay, sure. This public hearing is being held pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act. During this public hearing, anyone who believes that his or her interest is affected by the proposed development will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaws that are the subject of this hearing. All information, correspondence, petitions, or reports that have been received concerning the subject bylaws have been made available to the public. Council may ask questions of staff and public, but once the public hearing is over, no new information can be received. Council debate on the bylaw will take place when the bylaw is considered after the conclusion of the public hearing. At that time, any questions of staff will be for clarification purposes only. I will be inviting the public to come forward and present their comments. Speakers are asked to state their name and address for the record. Speakers are encouraged to limit their remarks to 5 minutes, please, and should include all of the relevant information in their presentation. Further opportunity will be afforded for all persons to speak a second or third time once all persons have had an opportunity to speak. I'd like to now ask the Director of Development Services to introduce the item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, it is a rezoning application for a property at 5010 Crowell Avenue. The subject rezoning is in order to allow for a subdivision of the property. The applicant wishes to retain the existing house in its current siting. In order to do that, they need to move the boundary for the subdivision further north, reducing the size of proposed lot 1. So they've asked for a rezoning from RSD3 to RSD2. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, have we received any correspondence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, we have received no correspondence.
Okay. Thank you. So now I'll proceed to ask the public for a very first time for any comments from the public, please. And for a second time, anybody from the public wish to speak on this item? And for a third time, anybody like to speak on the item? Hearing none, I would like to have a motion to adjourn the public hearing, please. Councillor Holmes. Councillor Carlson, all in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. So we'll move forward now to 5.0, delegations, the Riga Society.
Mr. Mayor, Council, and staff, I wanted to appear before you tonight on behalf of the Riga Festival Society, because it's a year ago, I think, that I was here to thank you for your support of the Marginal Arts Festival, because George Riga's birthday is the 27th of July, so it's coming up again this year. We're back. We're the Riga Festival, and we've got some very exciting events, and we just wanted to appear tonight to thank you very much. It's Dorothea Atwater and Peter High of Happy Valley Road. I forgot to introduce myself, sorry. And Peter will say a couple of words.
Thank you again for not only your support as a body and as a municipality, but also the individuals here present. 3 council members have volunteered for the festival, Janet Peake and Doug Holmes and Tony Booth, actually going to help move chairs and other things during the festival. So it's much appreciated, and no event of this kind could take place without community support, and we are very, very grateful for what we have received from council and from the community and from staff who have been exceptional in helping us. You may remember the very first time we came in front of you to pitch this festival, we mentioned our big ambitions. We talked about Stratford and Shore Festival on Niagara-on-the-Lake and Ashland in Oregon. And at that point, it seemed a little doubtful that we would be able to go towards achieving that. But now we have great news to announce, because we have just hired our artistic director, a first professional director, who is here with us tonight. And she is from Stratford, Ontario. It so happens that's where she lives, and she just arrived last Wednesday. And I wanted you to meet her, because she will be among us until the festival, and at the end of the festival, you'll be seeing her around, and she will be talking to you and asking your opinions. So, without further ado, I want to introduce Heather Davies, who sitting here, who has worked in the worked as a professional director and actress and dancer. She spent 20 years in the United Kingdom, working at Stratford, the Edinburgh Festival. She has tremendous experience with small towns and festivals. She just come from the Blythe Festival, which is in its 40th year. And so this is why we are so happy to have found her, and that she has accepted to come to us. So Heather will say a few words.
Hi. Good evening. So thank you again to the mayor and the chair and council, and to the community as well. I just want to say that I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. We've had lots of conversations, and it's a delight to actually finally be here in this incredibly rich community that already has such vibrancy and vitality and creativity in it. So I'm so pleased to be able to join you in the flesh. And just thank you again to the support that you received from the council, both last year as the Marginal Arts Festival and this year as the Riga Festival. It's thrilling that because of the success of the festival last year, the Riga family were very pleased to be able to allow us to take on the name of George Riga for this festival. He was an extraordinary artist with great vision and such deep roots in this community, so we're thrilled to be able to have that banner. And so I just want to say that we're continuing with that vision of an arts festival here with rich roots in the community. There's going to be this extraordinary combination of both professionals and community people engaging together to celebrate and enrich the community, the name of George Riga, his artistry, his vision, and also creativity as well. And we're on track for a stunning second year. It's always hard to create a great second album. It's always hard to create a great second festival, but we are feeling very confident we're on track for that. So I just want to come in and share that with you. And I am very much looking forward to seeing you all out on the street. You'll see me, I'll be waving at all of you. And I'll probably be coming up and talking to you, because there's so many stories here and so many wonderful people that I want to just at least say hi. So I'll be going around town and doing all that. And I look forward to seeing you all over the coming months, coming weeks. And look forward to a fantastic 2017 Riga Festival. Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll be at the Art Center a lot. I'm setting up a little hot desk there. You'll see me in a good way on the streets. And, and check out all the programming. It's fantastic. It's bursting, jam-packed 5 days at www.rigafest.ca. Many thanks. Take care.
Thank you, Heather, very much. And we are vacating 3 seats, which will be auctioned now to help the festival. The festival is the week leading up to Labor Day. So it starts on Wednesday, August 30th, till the Sunday, September 3rd. See you there. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Peter and Dorothea, and welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
We're going to enjoy having you here, and I'm very glad you're able to be here. So
It's
thank
mutual.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be moving ahead now to, and there are 3 seats up here which folks can take. We're at the section there's an opportunity for public commentary on any item that is highlighted in our agenda. And I might remind people that we have a very busy schedule this evening, so I'm going to be very tight with the 15 minutes and the opportunity of 2 minutes per person. So if anybody would like to speak to any highlighted item, now's the time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Donna Wall, Latimer Avenue. Firstly, Mayor Waterman, during the June 24th meeting, I misinterpreted a comment you had made, and I would like to publicly state my apology to you for that. Secondly, to
Anyway,
Mayor...
thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome. Secondly, to Mayor Waterman and elected council officials, on behalf of Summerlanders for Sensible Development, I would like to present another 223 signatures, mostly collected since last Wednesday. This brings our current total to 2,829 signatures of people who are against the proposed development of 13610 Banks Crescent, Summerland. As you know, we have been collecting signatures against Lark's proposed development for over 7 months now, and we will continue to collect more signatures because we, like most residents of Summerland, believe this is the wrong size of development for Summerland and that it is most definitely the wrong location. Many of our seniors have passionately signed our petition because they like to be within easy and flat walking distance from our many wonderful facilities, including our restaurants, grocery stores, library, theatre, salons, and proper medical facilities. They want to be a part of this very important community spirit that we have here and to not be tucked away. We believe our fish hatchery, our fruitful agricultural land, and the residents of this town deserve protection. We believe our official community plan is the written voice of the people of Summerland, and that our elected officials should not be swayed into short-term thinking by big developers with deep pockets. Summerlanders for Sensible Development want our community and our safety taken seriously. Elected officials, we urge you think very seriously about what is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm here to talk about the resolution regarding the pickleball courts.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate the town for having the courage and the foresight to revamp the courts that were down at the
what was your name, ma'am,
campground
please?
originally. I think that what has come out of it has been wonderful, and I congratulate you. But I would urge you to reject the proposals that have been put forward for the following reasons. These are public courts, they're on public land, and they've been paid for by public taxes. To give exclusivity to a club every morning of the week, Monday through Friday, and 2 hours on a Friday evening, I think is just wrong. The club may have lots of members, and they may have lobbied very hard for these courts to be built. And I congratulate them on that. But I still don't think that that gives them the right to have exclusivity at times that other people want to play. From the report, I guess what I'm saying is that from a business perspective, they have no skin in the game. They didn't donate to this. They didn't pay for these courts. They don't donate to them. They don't give fees to the town. And the only thing in the proposal that was attached to the minutes was that they sweep the courts. I think that most people who play racquetball sports carry a brush with them in their car anyhow, and a brush could be left at the campground office. I'd even offer to buy one if that's needed, but I don't think that that gives them any right for this exclusivity. An analogy would be if the residents of Trout Creek decided they were going to form the Trout Creek Tennis Club and came to council and said, we want to have exclusive use of those courts Monday through Friday, 9 till 12, and 2 hours on a Friday evening, and for that we'll sweep the courts. I think people would laugh at that proposal, but that's exactly the proposal that the Pickleball Club is actually making.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'll have to get you to wind it up, please.
Sure.
You've had your 2 minutes.
Basically, I'd like you to reject that. I'd like you to give free use to any member of the public, and if you feel that you have the need to refer this to the Recreation Committee, so be it, and then we'll discuss it again. But for now, I think that public should have access to public courts. Thank you.
What was your name, ma'am?
My name's Diane Calhoun, and I live in Summerland.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, my name is Jean Fishenden. I live at 7712 Barkle Street. I've resided here for 38 years. Was a very active tennis player. My concern is with the pickleball courts. There's a curfew down there in the a campsite. Nobody can play until 9 o'clock. Why? Who decided on the curfew 9 o'clock? This is a hot country. It'd be nice to be able to get out and play pickleball, say at 8 o'clock in the morning. I've talked to previous couples that have run the campsite down there, one for 11 years and one for 6 years, and there was only one complaint about noise in that time. Also, it means if the pickleball courts people have it 5 mornings a week, 9 to 12, who wants to play in the heat of the day afterwards? I think I don't object to them having the courts, but I think maybe it should be perhaps Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays, Tuesdays and Thursdays open to the public. The first time I ever came to Summerland to play in a tennis tournament, which was down at the Peach Orchard, there was a tennis club at that time. They only had 2 days a week. I can't remember the times, and sometime on a weekend. So surely we can reach a better situation than what we have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody else like to speak, please? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to, where are we?
Your report.
Okay, actually, I was too busy fishing to write a mayor's report, so there we go. CAO, there's no mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick note to council. As you know, the fire risk is high to extreme at this moment in time, and just to update council, we've been meeting with the RCMP Summerland detachment, our fire department chief and deputy chief and key staff, just to make sure that our plans and systems are in place in the case of a unexpected wildfire. We will be implementing an education program and rolling it out to the public over the next week or so. We've had some request to close trails, which at this point in time, we're not doing. We live in a dry desert area, and we need to ensure that, that trails are used in a safe manner and that the public is educated, including the visitors to this area that may not be aware that the fire bans are on. We were told by the RCMP and the fire department that to date, the calls that we've received on false complaints or small fire starts have been from non-locals. So that's an area that we'll be looking at, is how to increase that awareness throughout. And that's about it. Most of the fires that have occurred, it has been reported they are human-caused. So the ones that throughout the Okanagan and others that have been started. So we do have to be careful of that. So more information coming out on the education program.
That's it. Thank you. Okay, we have any unfinished business? None? No unfinished business? So we move on to correspondence, 10.1. Is there any, yeah, sorry. Is there anybody like to bring, Councillor Peak?
Yes, I'd like to bring forward the letter on page 19. It's a letter complimenting our staff for the efforts and the work they've done to recover the beaches and bring them back to an open opportunity. And it was very nice to receive that letter. Council has congratulated staff, but there have been letters put forward, and this is one of them. I'd just like to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, could we have a resolution come forward to receive the information items, please? Councillor Peak? Councillor Boot, thank you. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, 10.2, committee and commission minutes. A resolution to bring that resolution forward to receive those for information, unless there's any comment you'd like to make. If someone like to bring that forward, please. Councillor Holmes, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Boot. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. 11.1, Development Services. Mr. Strachan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The item we have is an environmentally sensitive development permit area. The application is to construct a single-family dwelling within this area. The applicants have provided a report from a registered professional biologist addressing the requirements of the official community plan for DP in this area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, questions of our planner, please. Councillor Peak.
Yes, Mr. Strachan, I realize in the circulated comments that there was, the shared environmental planner did the writing, and there was a comment on critical habitat. Could you make comment on that? That's where our shared biologist came in and made comment and asked about the critical habitat.
So there's an email supplemental to the report dated July 18th that was sent to the registered professional biologist clarifying that there's no critical habitat was identified on the subject site.
Okay, and if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There, in the EA report, there was a recommendation that buffers of 10 meters should be established in the areas where the ESA 1 areas border on the ESA 3. And my question is, are these buffers achievable?
The ASA 1 areas are adjacent to the development site. However, those are established within the development permit as a setback.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay, would someone like to bring that resolution forward, please? Councillor Barkle.
I'll move that the development permit application resolution as written in the agenda be moved.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Traynor, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to staff and reports. Item 12, 12.1 pickleball courts. CAO.
We have Brenda Ingram, the manager of recreation, here today that can answer questions of council. You have the report in regards to the current situation, so if there's questions, we can address them.
Okay. Council. Councilor Peak.
Thank you very kindly. Ms. Ingram, on the report, it talks about postings for the hours. Are those postings on both sets of pickle courts, that is the ones down at Powell Beach and at Peach Orchard?
Only at Peach Orchard.
So in fact, the pickleball courts are open at Powell Beach for...
The lines have actually been removed, the pickleball lines, since this, I had written this report. The pickleball lines are not as strong at the Powell Beach, so it's not as desirable court to play on.
Right.
Down at Powell Beach.
In
Peach
terms
Orchard.
of lines, but the court is there to be able to be used. That was really what I was intending.
Councilor Trainer, then Councilor Carlson.
I was just wondering, who originally set the hours, like 9 to noon and 5 to 7? And then also, is 9 the opening time for the courts, or can they be played on before then?
So 9 is the opening time, because previous to 9 o'clock is quiet time in the campground. And campground operator had asked us to stay within those quiet times for the operation of the campground. So that's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock to noon, Monday through Friday, and the Friday evening time was a request made by the pickleball club. At the time that the courts were completed, they asked for those times. And because we didn't have a previous bylaw or policy on booking courts, because courts have never been so popular, that time was given to them.
It is important to note that Brenda Ingram, as manager of recreation, was away at the time, still on leave at the time, and staff was not aware that that there isn't the authority within them, and that it needed to come to council, because ideally it should have come to council at the lack of having a bylaw for your consideration before it was decided.
Councilor Carlson.
Would you be able to briefly explain how the booking and fees work for other facilities such as baseball diamonds and soccer fields, and why that might be different than a court?
So baseball diamonds, soccer pitches, a request is made by a user group, and it is part of our fees and charges bylaw. All of those fields and facilities have a fee. Courts have never had a fee. The only bookings we've had in the past is by the tennis club to use it for tournaments, and we have given it to them to use for tournaments, and there has not been a fee associated. Our courts haven't been so popular in the past.
But we haven't given them out for blocks of time in the past,
No, it
just
would
a
only
short-term
be for
tournament.
just a weekend.
So
for
it is a new
tournament.
situation, which is
Mhm.
why it needed discussion.
Thank you.
Councilor Trainer.
Well, I think it's really great that the courts are in demand, because obviously more people are wanting to use them, and pickleball is an upcoming or growing sport. So I think that given that more people want to use them, that it would be fair that we come up with some kind of policy, and then that way everybody can be on the same page. And I think that this is something that the Recreation Commission would probably like to discuss or have their input on, so I would suggest bringing this to them, and then maybe it coming back to council after.
Councilor Peak.
If Councillor Trainer is interested in putting the motion forward, I certainly agree with those statements.
Okay.
I still have questions.
Go ahead. Well, you can.
They can bring a motion if they
You
desire.
can have
or
a
they
motion,
wait.
still have discussion going, yeah.
If they
So
would.
the motion would be reading as?
Option 3, refer to the Parks and Recreation Commission for options.
And I'll second it.
Second it.
And then you should have discussion what to do in the meantime
Yeah.
as part of that discussion.
Okay. Councilor Holmes.
Could you tell me how much maintenance is required of the Peach Orchard courts, and how much does the district do, and how much does the pickleball association do?
So because the courts are fairly new, having just opened, it's hard to evaluate what the long-term cost is going to be or time. The Pickleball Association does blow the leaves off. They remove the clay that falls down on there. The district has not had to do anything beyond having washed them when the courts first opened, put new nets. So in the long term, it could be washing again, replacing nets as they, wear out, or hopefully not, but could be vandalized. So I can't really give you a clear answer on that. I don't know until we've had a little more time using them.
Anybody else? Councillor Holmes again.
Yeah, I'd like, I'm totally fine with this being referred to the.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Speak up, yeah.
I'm fine with this being referred to the Rec Commission to consider. I'd like them to think kind of outside the box options as well. I mean, maybe, if I think you can justify letting a group use the courts in if you have some sort of agreement that they maintain them as well, and that might relieve some pressure from our own staff that especially I know those Peach Orchard courts normally are pretty high maintenance courts, and so if we can kind of think of it as a community solution where they're maintaining courts in exchange for their use, then I think that those sort of things ought to be considered as well. In terms of fees, I think any fees that are levied for use of courts, I think you need to look at the cost of maintaining and providing a tennis court compared to a soccer field or a sheet of ice or something, and any fees ought to reflect that as well. It's.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
So I don't know a lot about pickleball in terms of how many hours it takes to play a game and how many members can be on the court at one time. But there was a comment made that perhaps we should come up with a interim solution. So the question is, there's 3 hours, is 15 hours a week in the morning enough time for as many people as are part of the pickleball court to even play? Is that why that many hours was chosen? Or can we start talking about, 9 hours a week, and then anyone else can play outside of that time, first come, first serve? Do you know?
So when the Pickleball Association grew so quickly to 100 members, they felt at that time that having 5 mornings a week would accommodate them being able to play. Not all 100 members, but break them up into groups because 12 people can play at a time. We have 3 courts down there. The average game is a half an hour, could be more, but that's usually is a half an hour is what you book. So that's how they were coming up with. And in fairness, as Linda had said, I think decision was made on what their request was, and we can look at options. We can certainly try and accommodate public use also. It was a schedule that started and now can be revised.
Just to add to that, I think we have to recognize that if the Pickleball Association is that big, it's because pickleball sport is that big, and that if you have campers that are coming and they are not going to join an association and they're not allowed to play, and that's part of what they do on their holiday. And also for the Recreation Commission, it's a big topic because there's lots of pieces to it. I think perhaps the answer right now is to work with the Pickleball Association for this interim time and encourage them to incorporate anyone that's coming into their scheduling, and let the Recreation Commission make their decisions. But if you're not going to remove that altogether and just keep it as most courts are with a 30-minute time limit or something, that the Pickleball Association is told that they need to encourage cooperative play with others that may show up in those times at this point.
Okay. I do understand that the Pickleball Association does invite guests or one-time players to also join them in their time.
Yeah, just a minute. We've got a bit of a lineup here. Councillor Boot, Councillor Barkville, Councillor Trainer. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see in the agenda that there is actually another time as well on Friday evenings from 5 to 7, so that's 17 hours a week. Okay. Having joined the Pickleball Association on their kind of opening event, it really is fun to play. However, I have some concerns about a publicly owned and funded facility being used 17 hours, like having exclusive right. Whether or not they are inviting guests in, those are kind of exclusive guests. I have some concerns about that I just wanted to voice.
Thank you. Councillor Barkville.
It seems like the real issue isn't the number of hours that they have it's that they have blocked out the best time, which is, weekday mornings. And so and I recognize that you can't have an association without, a scheduled time. I hope the Recreation Commission looks at maybe just reallocating those hours, and even if it requires more too. My question through the Mayor, to the Director of Recreation is, what would it cost to add additional or to improve the pickleball lines at the Trail Creek place?
I think we're getting well beyond the scope of what we're discussing, unfortunately. Councillor Barkville, I think that's a question for us to address down the road when we're trying to expand facilities.
I think it might be something that the Recreation Commission might consider
Well, I
in their
think it will be down the
response.
road. I think right now what we're trying to do, first of all, is I think taking the CAO's thoughts there, that perhaps in an interim period until the Rec Commission can consider options that may be fair to all, that some sort of integrated approach for the next, we're sort of in the middle of summer here, active period of use, and I can see, unless the Rec Commission is going to meet a little bit later this evening, they're probably not going to come up with with any kind of recommendations that will deal with the situation to accommodate tourists and so on over the next short period. So I think we need to first of all look at are we going to let the Rec Commission look at options, and then perhaps leave our Rec Director with the direction to indicate some sort of integrated approach in the interim period. So that's what I would like to see happen here. Councillor Trainer.
I was just wondering, who sets the quiet times for the campground, and are those just recommended, or are they a bylaw?
Those are recommended by the campground operator and agreed upon when she does her lease agreement, which we're into the first year of a three-year agreement.
So that could, okay. I was just thinking possibly down the road that could be taken to 8 o'clock, because I think 8 o'clock's a reasonable time in the summer, but that's just my opinion moving forward.
Having just come off a weekend of camping, you'll find that a lot of times people are sleeping a little bit past 8 o'clock. Just, it's a time when they're trying to get away and relax as well. Councillor Carlson and Councillor Peak.
I think that for the next 6 to 8 weeks, while it is busy, we should perhaps set 2 days a week that if it will appease the Pickleball Association, but I also think that everyone should be reminded that just because it's not booked out to them at 9 a.m. doesn't mean they can't all show up to play at 9 a.m. So it's a matter of first come, first serve, and I would suggest that Tuesdays and Thursdays for the remainder of the summer, perhaps there could be a sign-up. It says priority is for Pickleball Association, and then the rest of the week, people should be able to use them as they see fit.
Councillor Peak.
I understand the need to look at this. I think it should go to the Recreation Committee. I think that if the previous discussion was for this block of time and we're partway into the summer, I could certainly see that the Pickleball Association could have use for 3 days a week and the other 2 could be open times. But I also encourage the cooperative notion that if you have other people there that are not members of the association, that they should be allowed to play as well. I think especially in the interim period where we will be looking at this through the commission. So I hope that those discussions will be able to be had between the public, yourselves, and the association itself. I think there's a great opportunity. And whether we develop more courts, and that's something that's possible down the line and may come back through you.
I think Councillor Peak, the suggestion by Councillor Carlson was Tuesday and Thursday specific for pickleball at this point.
I know she did. I suggested 3 days a week since there was general discussion previously.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure that you were clear on the difference.
I was perfectly clear on what was said.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. Okay, we have a motion in front of us right now to refer to Parks and Rec for their consideration. That's the motion in front of us right now. So is there any further discussion on that particular option or a particular motion? Councillor Barkwell.
So if we think that we should make an immediate decision to reallocate the times, we should vote down this resolution and present another resolution that has those days.
Yep, you could do that, or you can have this resolution and then come up with a second one. That the broader one is option 3. That is going to take care of the longer term. You may want to come up with a shorter resolution, or a resolution that recommends something that will be an integrated measure for the next period of weeks.
Do both.
I would suggest we look at the first one, and then let's not take a lot of time doing this, but let's get the first one done and then think about a second one, okay? So, all in favor of option 3 that's being presented? We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, now, anybody like to bring forward a second motion that would deal with the next number of weeks to be fair to all participants over the next short period? Councillor Carlson.
Let's do 2.5. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and then Friday, perhaps Friday evening, because it's probably on there as an alternative to those who cannot make that morning time and would like to have a specific court opportunity. So my motion would be that the pickleball courts be designated for the use of the Summerland Pickleball Club on Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. till noon, and Friday 5 till 7, until a bylaw and further schedule can be determined.
Okay, can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Boot, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Holmes, by all means.
I don't want to complicate matters, but
well, yeah, but you probably do. Go
ahead. Maybe we should leave it to the rec department to determine with the pickleball association, because it probably doesn't really matter which 2 days, but maybe we could say 2 mornings and 1 evening, and leave it to the rec department to figure out which 2 days and which evening.
Actually, that's a really good idea. But we do have a motion on the floor.
Okay, we can change it.
Okay,
A friendly amendment.
A friendly change, okay. You agree, the seconder agree? Okay. So now we've got, do you want to repeat that, please? And it's all of its clarity?
It's not my motion.
You got that? Okay. Sure, you might as well.
That the pickleball club be given 2 mornings from 9 a.m. to noon and 1 evening from 5 to 7. Use of the pickleball courts at the campground, or that it gets worked out with the Parks and Rec.
Or just staff? Just by staff.
Yeah.
Councillor Carlson.
Just a comment, I think that, well, I hope that this will be seen as some form of making it okay, because a decision was made and we need to make sure that we don't take it away completely, but I do think that there's lots of work still to be done on this one, obviously.
Councillor Carlson, just refer to Councillor Holmes again. I thought your motion stated that you wanted the rec department or staff to work out with the pickleball people that would end up with a time frame that would work for them. But in the motion, we're talking about Still talking about Tuesday, Thursday.
2 mornings.
Two mornings and an evening?
One evening.
But
Of
that
their
would be
choosing.
discussed with the pickleball when we've
Yeah.
already made up our mind that those were the days?
No, you wouldn't make the
The
decision.
friendly amendment
Okay,
takes away the
okay,
days being named.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of that clear message? Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to item 12.2. Mr. Strachan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a report, an update report for the OCP amendment and rezoning for 13610 Banks Crescent. The first component of that report is related to the applicant's request for an audience with council to provide an update on their current activity regarding their application, including their request for a public hearing to be scheduled. Their first resolution would be a consideration by council to authorize them to speak to council, and the motion must be made.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, CAO, we have to deal with that motion before we can have any further discussion from our presentation by Mr. Strachan, is that clear?
Well, not before you can have with Mr. Strachan, if council wishes to hear from the developers, a unanimous motion would be required.
Okay,
Resolution.
would we hear from them immediately after that motion?
No,
if it-
yeah, you can invite them now, so they've asked to be invited. So basically, council now needs to vote on whether or not to invite
Make that
the LARC group as an audience.
Okay. So would someone like to make that motion to invite the LARC group to make a presentation, please? Councillor Parkville.
I'll make the motion as written in the agenda that the Clark group
Councillor
be
Peak.
invited.
I'll second the motion for them to speak to council.
Thank you. Okay, council, any discussion on this? Councillor Carlson.
Just that I think that we should allow this to happen tonight. And I think that there's a lot of folks here that probably would like an update from the developer and hear what they have to say. I hope I'm not reading that wrong. So I would encourage everyone to allow this to happen because I think it's makes it worthwhile for everyone who has come to hear what they need to say tonight.
I think that, you know, in terms of council as well, I think to make sure that we're hearing all the information and any updates that we hear from the developer would be a good move on our part. Any further discussion on the invitation to the proponent? Okay, all in favor of inviting the LARC group to speak to council? Thank you. It's unanimous. So we can invite them now. Would the LARC group like to please come and make a presentation to council? Thank you, council, by the way. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Your Worship, Mayor, Council, and staff, and residents, thank you very much for being here today and for allowing us to speak. We're super excited to present more information that we have and to ask for the public hearing. Specifically, we have St. Elizabeth in the house, a representative from Ontario and a representative from BC. So if anybody has any questions or would like to give them input about the great impact they have in wonderful communities like that, they're here today, which is wonderful. The second aspect that we're excited about is we spent 3 days last week with 16 of us, some of our physiotherapists, some of our construction people, walking around the neighborhood, and we had a wonderful feel from the community and wonderful support of the project, and we were just really happy and excited.
Okay, we'll have to call the meeting. Please be orderly. The gentleman's been invited to speak to council, and the public is invited to listen. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. So we were extremely excited and happy and impressed with the percentage of people in the community that were in support of the project. We'll be presenting that in a whole package to council so they can see the exact numbers. But there were double-digit % support for the project, double in signatures, double-digits % support for the project as a silent in support. Obviously, also double-digit of people not home. which happens, and single-digit people not supporting the project. So we were very excited with the statistics and the results, and that's what we wanted to say. The next thing is just the concept of 10 days in our request is just because that's the minimum. Obviously, we're excited for you guys to decide whenever the public hearing is. We just understood it was a process step that we should do to come to you saying, we are ready. Whenever you are ready, we're ready for public hearing. So,
Thank you.
and thank you.
Go ahead.
I apologize, I forgot to introduce myself. Kirk Fisher, Senior Vice President of the LARC Group. Malik Tawashi, Development Project Manager.
Thank you. Okay, you've nothing more?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions from council at this point? Councilor Carlson.
I have a question regarding the presentation that was given on May 8th. I've been thinking about this one, and there is an additional component in your presentation in regards to Health Tech Connects, I believe, and the Helios project. I'm just wondering, when it comes to a private enterprise such as that, being within a facility such as this, where is the oversight, and how does the Ministry of Health or Interior Health play into a company when they're doing work such as that within a facility as you proposed?
Great question. The technologies have to have FDA and Health Canada approval. The concept of how those technologies are delivered are then followed from the Health Canada approval. So as an example, the PONS device, which is the company called Helios, is in pursuit of their health approval. They're only a few months away, and obviously this project is 2 years, at the best, 2 years away from opening. So those technologies will have had FDA approval and have been operating for 16 months or so. And they would be strictly based on the guidelines of how they got their FDA approval. So what it is an example, it's an assistance to physiotherapy. So a trained physiotherapist, would do an aspect of training for someone if they have MS, if they have CP, if they have a traumatic brain injury, any of those aspects. And once the technology is Health Canada FDA approved, they can add that as an additional service, like a foam roller practically, or like a treadmill.
And would there, once they have that approval from Health Canada to be within a facility, is there any, what the continued oversight from the BC ministry? Like what if some questions get raised about this new technology? Who and how do we make sure that it's dealt with properly and ethically?
I'd have to get you a real accurate question. I apologize, I don't know the exact answer to that. An aspect of physiotherapy, of course, I'm a civil engineer and there's an engineering society that I need to follow. I understand there's a physiotherapy society. I don't know how it's governed, I apologize. We can get that answer to council through staff. But there's the typical guidelines of any physiotherapy facility that we believe would be managed the same way.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Okay, Mr. Strachan, would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as noted, we have an update report on the subject application. As noted in the presentation from the applicants, there's a letter within the package requesting that the public hearing be scheduled. There's a number of provisions within the report that outline the schedule that would need to take place if council wished to proceed with that component. There's also the recommendation from staff that the additional study and review continue prior to a public hearing being scheduled. And examples of the information that we're looking still to collect are related to the sanitary sewer servicing, the lift station capacity, the main capacity, as well as the road infrastructure that's necessary to accommodate the development. So you'll note that staff have recommended that the public hearing not be scheduled at this point in time until such time as the study is completed. Also within those components of outstanding items remains the freshwater fisheries and the resolution from council to explore the options around the alternate water source. The Lark Group has presented the Okanagan Lake deep water source as a potential option. We're waiting a response from the latest data information on water temperatures that were provided to freshwater fisheries. And so we're recommending again that council withhold until that information becomes available. Other letters within the package include a letter from the Lark Group that arrived on July 10th. We referenced in our previous report to council in reference to the petition that's been provided, as well as there's a letter within the package speaking to a comparative traffic assessment. So this assessment speaks to the traffic numbers from the applicant's report for the subject development and compares it to what would the traffic output would be if you were to have a townhouse development on the site. So it's a comparative between those two types of development. The other component within the the report is a brief discussion on where we're at with the rezoning. And I was hoping to have a brief discussion with council on not only where we're at, but why a CD rezoning is a little different than the standard rezoning that you see. So a CD rezoning does have different aspects. First of all, where we're at with this at this point in time, you'll note that there's a number of items that still remain outstanding. The critical ones being the sanitary information, the traffic information, the electrical information, and the freshwater fisheries information. Those are the key components still remaining outstanding as far as our study and review that surround the recommendation to council to collect that information in advance of going to public hearing. And this is just to ensure that council has as much information as can be provided to them when they have to come forward with the decision making on the application. After public hearing is closed, council cannot receive new information. So this would end the opportunity for that input to be provided. If council were to schedule the public hearing, staff would then endeavor to provide as much information as could be collected between now and that public hearing, but would not be able to be certain that the full package of information would be available, which is why we recommend that the council wait until we have that information. We can present it to council, present the pros and cons of that information before council makes a decision on scheduling public hearing. As to the CD zone and why is it different, so the comprehensive development zone includes a component of what's called form-based coding. So form-based coding takes not only regulations like setbacks and height and site coverage, but also includes drawings. So it includes the form of the buildings and how they're going to be laid out. So when you have a CD zone and you're rezoning to that CD zone, there's much more detail involved in the rezoning process that you wouldn't normally see with a rezoning application. So councilors familiar with receiving small projects, you receive a rezoning, there may be a likeness to what could take place on that property, but the rezoning to that zone doesn't bind them to that particular development format. So for example, a single family neighborhood, if you have a piece of bare land that's proposed to be rezoned and it gets rezoned, there may be a template or a type shown within that rezoning application, but the applicants aren't bound to that specific layout for their subdivision. They then would have the ability to lay out their subdivision as that zone allows. So they could have more lots or less lots, reorient lots, so forth. This is different. The form-based zoning attaches the site plan, the elevations, the heights, the components of the building structure directly to the zone. So there's more detail involved. It gives council a clearer picture when they make a decision on the project as to what will take place on that property versus leaving it somewhat open, which a standard zoning would allow. The flip side of that being is council needs a lot more information in order to make that decision. So there's more components that are done earlier in the process that would not necessarily be done on a project like this. So if this was simply a downtown lot that was going to be rezoned and a development proposal would then come forward, there wouldn't be the need to see the elevations, the site plan, the height, those components. However, in this particular circumstance, due to the scale of the development and the issues associated with the site around height, around massing, around its location in relation to environmental sensitive areas, the form-based coding system works quite well, but more information needs to be collected. So this is a little bit unusual for council in the process, But the reason it is such a complicated application for rezoning is that need to have that detailed information for siting. So in the package, you'll notice that the development permit application has been submitted. So there are new drawings that were provided, and that's a part of this process, because as the CD zone gets to a more finite state, and revisions are being made based on what the developer is discovering as well as the city is discovering through this information process, that site plan begins to evolve and become something more concrete. So the site plan has now been revised to include some revisions that took place as a result of a number of components. One being the adjacent property. There's a single-family dwelling property that was at one point a part of the application. Then earlier this year, due to a contract expiry, became out of the development and now has returned back in. The applicants had moved this building, Building E, forward outside of that particular property, which is in this corner. And when the property came back into the application, decided that it was better not to move that building back over, and instead have proposed townhouses along that side as a buffering, a two-story buffering. So instead of having the taller building, the five-story building, moved further back again where it was originally on the application, they've proposed to put the two-story units that you see in your package, which is a crescent of townhouse development that they feel would be a better transition between the taller buildings of the main development and the adjacent single-family residential. So why do we need the development permit drawings at this point? This feeds back into that CD zone. So we need to have drawings that depict what's actually going to be constructed, because they're going to be bound to that within the CD zone itself. So the basic components of massing, siting, height are all going to be directly connected to the zoning district. So if that plan doesn't go forward as proposed, they would be required then to come back to council and seek an amendment to the zone, which would include a public consultation process. So it does include that provision that ensures what council approves at rezoning is what gets constructed. And those are the basic elements of where we're at today, and we'll hear for council's questions.
Thank you. So there's sort of two things we're looking at right now. There's been a suggestion in the text of what was presented that council could direct staff to schedule a public hearing sort of based on a time and date that council might, or that staff might feel was more suitable in terms of meeting the requirements. And so I guess rather than setting a specific date, that ends up asking staff to examine the requirements of what's coming in the way of information, and then trying to suggest some sort of a date. And I'm not terribly concerned that the developer would like to have it in 10 days. That's obviously can't happen, and they realize that too. So if it's going to take a time frame that staff feels is is going to do the job, then I would think that we could look at the resolution that's being presented within the text of your presentation, and then we could end up looking at what may be the best for the whole process in terms of the information gathering. And I agree that we want to move ahead with all the information. I don't think it's a good idea to end up having the public hearing without all the information. So that's one of the considerations that we have here. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to check, are we going to be having the ability to ask Mr. Strachan some questions about the report as presented tonight?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prior to this discussion.
And
about
any motion can come forward. So that's one of the motions that's possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and as well as a motion to receive the report. So by all means, if you've got Questions of Mr. Strachan? Okay, we can proceed. Councillor Booth and Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Strachan, in the report it said that you were hoping to get something from the fish hatchery by way of response by last Friday. I guess we didn't get anything?
No, Mr. Mayor, we did not receive any additional information at this point.
Okay, thank you. I don't understand the traffic information study. Could you walk me through that a bit, please? I don't know how to read it.
So what you're seeing is a synopsis of a larger traffic study that's being reviewed by our city engineer. So what they've done is they've taken out a component that lists out the expected number of units and then has generated trip generation, so the number of trips that are expected in vehicles by people in different types of development. So the top table is showing what would be generated in trips, or the number of trips that would be excuse me, too many trips in my trip-up sentence. The number of trips that would be generated as a result of certain housing types.
Okay.
So, for example, the seniors adult housing is anticipated to produce so many daily trips. So you see the total trips at the bottom are being tabulated along. So the second table is referring to the same format of trip generation based on a different code within the engineer's tables. So they're following what it would be if it was going to be a low-rise residential condo. So you're looking at two different housing types and what those two would be producing as far as the number of trips. And what you'll see in the final paragraph is a summary of what that means, in the fact that what they're stating is that if it was to develop as a medium density residential development, so your standard residential development, that the trip generation would be lower than it would be if this proposed development were to go forward. So that's what the two tables are showing. The top one being the proposed development before council, the bottom table being the trip generation calculated if it was to be a townhouse development. So if this site were to develop instead of as this format, we would develop as some form of a townhouse development. And the example they're using, or the background they're using, is based on the Lower Town strategy, which indicated some form of residential development. And the residential development they picked for comparison is the low-rise condos.
And that the low-rise condos, that would be an example of a medium-density development?
That's correct.
So what this is saying is the higher density, which is what's proposed, actually results in less traffic than a medium density? Is that what?
What it's suggesting is because of the user type, the configuration of who's going to be living there.
Okay.
With the seniors, adult housing, assisted living, and then the condo townhouse, those trip generations are lower than they would be for a standard residential housing project.
And assisted living, is that the memory care component?
Yes and no. As a transportation code, it is. As a true health use, it's not. There isn't codes in transportation tables for everything.
Sorry. So the number of units, what does it show? For 52 assisted living, that includes the memory care units.
Correct.
Okay, that's what my question was. Okay, thank you. And I just have one other question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, yeah.
And this refers to the resubmitted plan that shows I'm just going to find it here.
Townhouses.
The townhouses on it. Of course, it's not opening for me.
It's the screen on the.
Yeah, thank you. So the last time I saw this plan, of course, the townhouses were not there, and it showed a widening of the road there. Well, it was presented as to satisfy me that there would be adequate access and egress. in case of emergency. And I'm wondering how that might change. When it was presented, it showed that the plan showed that there would be adequate width in that road now, with the widening of the road for, I don't even remember the length of the emergency vehicles that would be required if there was a fire there or some other kind of emergency response. Does that change with the 14 additional townhomes and what looks like, and I could be wrong, but what looks like the road not being widened any longer, does that impact the access and egress of that property for emergency vehicles?
So the first part being, would the roads still be adequate to allow for emergency access vehicles?
Well,
is that on site? Is that what you're
so if you move your little pointer up there, right where Acasa Road joins, I think it's Latimer.
Yeah.
Right. That was quite a bit wider. I can't remember the term that was used. It was I don't know if it was a bib or something like that.
I think you have to
But-
have dimensions, Councillor Boot, because the map may or may
So
not express it properly.
It would have to meet the minimum standard for emergency vehicles. It must. It's not, it wouldn't be a question of if the zoning shows that it must in order to meet the building permit requirements.
Okay, so the other part of that conversation that I had, so that satisfies that, is that the only route in and out of Banks Crescent? I see something that says private road there, but it doesn't really tell me anything.
So the roadways are internally private roadways, and this drawing doesn't depict it very well on the screen for you, but yes, there is 2 points of access that retain for the development, as was originally shown in this. This is actually 2 plans ago, which is the 2 points of access here. What has occurred is Building E is shifted down, as has this roadway.
Okay.
And this roadway remains in place, but has been shifted both up as well as to the west, as this horseshoe is added with a second internal roadway that's coming across. What you lose a little bit in these drawings, because they are so detailed, is you don't get the full picture on any one drawing because they're not all at the same elevation. So this is the development that's in slices going down the hill. So
Okay.
this slice is showing this elevation. The next slice that's in your package shows the next floor, so one down, and the interconnection between them is through the internal roadways. So the development is stepped up through the property, and there's a series of elevations which are met. So this particular access is on this elevation. The floor below is where that access is that you're referencing to. The drawing
Okay.
that puts it together is not part of the DP package, because that's sort of the
Okay.
preliminary bubble kind of diagram that's shown here. So this original drawing that's shown ignores the fact that the grade difference between here and here is significant. It just shows them both on the same drawing. So you see how these roads do not connect?
Right.
They actually connect through the building and need the ramps within the parkade in order to connect them.
Okay, I guess.
It's difficult to decipher
It is.
engineering drawings when there are slices through the elevations. Okay, Councillor Peak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in fact, there are still 2 entrances onto the property from public roads.
That's correct, that has not changed.
Right, and if I might make note, we have a second engineering report. Could you speak to that report?
There's a, in the package, under figure 2, you find a letter from the Lark Group in reference to the petition currently being circulated. Within that letter, they make reference to engineer's report in regards to the high hazard steep slope areas. So you'll note as an attachment to that letter dated June 30th, 2017, a letter from Matt Koken of Geo-Pacific, and this is a second geotechnical engineer providing feedback on the potential impact and the rationale for limited impact on the aquifer.
Right, if I may I go into that a little further, Mr. Mayor? So it talks about elevation depth is limited to 11 meters or less below current site grades. And it goes on and talks about the deep hole testing and the depths at 27 and 35 meters. My question was around the last sentence in the second paragraph about vertical permeability is expected to be very low. Could you just tell me a little bit about that in terms of the grades and whatever?
So it has two parts to it, in that the site is sloped from west to east, of course. So is the development. So the base floor elevation of the most western building will be higher than it would be for the base lowest floor in the eastern portion. So it's following the grade downhill. And what they're referencing here is that the aquifer elevation also carries downhill. So it's also following. So when they talk about the depth, minimum depth to the aquifer from where they're working, that's how that's portrayed out. The component about vertical is related to, on a slope, how water moves through the soil. So different materials, water will percolate downwards at a different rate as well as pipe differently, and that's what they're referencing to here, is that the vertical movement of water is minimal in this particular type of material, is that reference.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Barkle, and then Councillor Trainer.
Yes. A reference to the earlier question, I think the short answer question is, has our fire chief approved the access? And the answer is yes.
The fire chief has not been presented a detailed engineer drawing. They would be a building permit, and their approval would be required.
Okay.
So no, they have not received a detailed on-site engineering plan,
but
their approval would be required.
Yeah, okay, well, that gives me all the comfort I need in that department. When we were looking at the trip generation chart, and I was trying to pull up, it doesn't display well, but I got it. If I understand it correctly, the comparison they used was 424 units of residential care compared to 336 units of townhouses and such. Is that correct? Is that the comparison, the number of units? Or they didn't compare like 200 units to 200 units or anything?
No, they looked at the building massing that you have and calculated out based on what that would be if it was going to be residential condos. So some of these unit types, like assisted living, for example, has a very much smaller footprint than a townhouse would. So you would get more units in the same square footage for that type of use. So they tried to use a similar footprint with a different housing type to compare.
Okay. Right. And so the relevant numbers in this comparison are the 2,800 trips for the townhouses versus 2,032 for this type of project.
That's what they're presenting to council.
Okay.
Councillor Trainer.
I just have a question about the studies that we've seen so far. Over the last while, the number of units has changed. And I'm just wondering what impact that has on the studies that we've been seeing, like, for example, the traffic study. So that's my first question. And my second question is, what kind of flexibility is there in this kind of development in terms of the number of units? And does that keep changing, or how does that work?
So first part being is yes, the number of units is changing. It has progressed through a series of studies and review, and more information is becoming available to not only council but to the developer. It's also changes occur in market and what they're looking at, as well as changes which they spoke to with some of their partners having an interest in having a bigger component of the development being allocated to them. So yes, the unit count has changed. That normally does occur with large-scale developments as they move forward and more information becomes available. The development will be amended to fit better with whatever components are being evaluated. So in this case, they're evaluating the market as well as what they know about the development and the costs associated with it, and are amending their proposal. That's important in this type of rezoning when you're going to a comprehensive development zone, a CD zone. Again, back to that component of form-based. So yeah, this feeds into the second question, which is related to the flexibility of development format. And essentially the applicant is reduced in their flexibility with this form of CD zoning. So what we're seeing is a process where they're refining their development prior to rezoning being granted because of this form-based requirement. So they have to get to a higher level of detail in order to satisfy the zoning district. Whereas in a normal development, a smaller scale development, you would see the land rezoned. Then the applicant would then go away and sort out what their development would be and be back for a development permit where they would have finite numbers. And that is very common to have that change. And there's flexibility built into zoning districts to allow for that change. This is a little different in that it's form-based coding, so it's tying it more directly to what's to be built. And that's to provide certainty for council as well as the community on ensuring that what takes place here is what's been rezoned for. So it's the strongest mechanism to ensure what gets built on the site is what is approved at rezoning. As to whether there's going to be any flexibility in that zoning district, yes, there likely will be a minor amount of flexibility as the units will be attached to floor space ratio, building configuration. So for example, if they increase the number of assisted living units, they would be smaller units that would have less square footage, so they may be able to increase those numbers. As far as how that relates to the traffic studies, all of the traffic studies and the infrastructure studies need to follow those changes. So as they're making changes, those are impacting those studies, and those studies are then updated. So there's the progression there. The actual impact on the studies is limited in that if you have a small unit for assisted living, the actual energy and sanitary and water and traffic impact versus a bigger unit is actually lower. So those changes are taking place.
So a quick follow-up to that then.
Sure.
So say, for example, a project was pitched at 360 units, and then later it was either dropped down to 320 or it was raised up to like 400. Would that have to come back to council?
If there was a significant alteration to the development, yes, they would need to come back to council to amend the CD zone, to amend the drawings within that CD zone package. The main component and the main control mechanism that you use in a CD zone is that form and character, which speaks to the box being created and equaling its impact on adjacent infrastructure. So you can't create more units within the development unless it has the same or equal amount of impact on infrastructure. So it would need to be, there needs to be a certain level of flexibility, but the lowest level of flexibility that you would have in zoning is with a form-based CD zone.
I think I just want to, for my own clarity, what you're saying, Mr. Strachan, is that once the CD zone has been achieved, they've got a specific zoning. And I've experienced this with a couple of other major developments in town that didn't actually come to fruition. But that zoning is very specific once the zoning is granted, that there's very little flexibility in it. Up until the time of the granting of the CD zone, there could easily be changes that we're seeing. But once that zoning, if I stand to be corrected, but once that zoning is achieved and they have that CD zone, if they do, then the number of units and the way the form and character, et cetera, of the development is essentially fixed. And if they want any substantive changes, to the zone, like this would be a CD8 or a CD9, is it? That it would be, it would have to come back to council for a change in the zoning that they had achieved. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the analogy I used with Councilor Traynor, we talked about this earlier today, is if a potter is doing a clay pot.
Yeah.
As the clay is being molded and created to create the pot, there's a certain level of malleability in the clay. So that's where we're at right now in the process. The actual completion of the rezoning
Firing.
is the firing of
Yeah.
that pot. Once it's fired, it's no longer malleable. So that's kind of what this is doing, is we're malleable at this point because we're getting new information and we're establishing what's going to work on the property, as well as council responding to what the community has to say. But once that rezoning is completed and that pot is fired, it no longer can be changed.
Good, okay, that's what I wanted. Thank you. Was there somebody else? Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to just go back to the comparative traffic assessment again. I have a hard time understanding some of these numbers. So if you look at the total generated trips, why doesn't the AM plus the PM equal the daily? I don't quite understand. You see, like, there's 144 AM hours, 174 PM, but the total daily is 2,000. Shouldn't AM plus PM equal the total daily? Or I don't understand how that's broken down.
So I can't really speak to how that works. I'm assuming that it would be a block of hours within that time period. So AM hours and maybe a 3-hour block. I'm not aware. I'd have to look at the traffic study and confer with our city engineer to have that kind of a question.
Mr. Strachan, just an interruption. I think that's referring to the per hour, when it says AM hour.
Oh, that's per
It's
hour,
talking
okay.
a per hour basis. You take that and multiply it by the number of hours that would be available for traffic.
Okay.
You'll come up with the number that's under daily.
Great.
Okay?
Okay, good. So the 2,032, that's the total generated daily things. And then the the trip generation rates, that's trips per unit, basically, right? You see the 3.44, the 2.66, 5.881. Essentially, that's the trips per unit. Because if you divide the daily totals divided by the expected units, that's the numbers you get, right? So if you look down to the hypothetical development that it's comparing with, the generation rate is, it says not available, but you can easily divide to
Not available or not applicable?
or not, I don't know, NA. It's either not applicable or not available. I don't know why
I
it's not.
think NA standard is not applicable.
So I don't understand why it's not applicable, because if you divide 2,883 divided by the expected units, 336, you get 8.58. So I would like to know why a low-rise residential condo would generate 8.58 trips per unit, whereas a residential condo townhouse would generate 5.81 trips per unit.
So the unit generations are based, and you see the bracketed component beside it, the IT code. You'll have to forgive me, I can't remember the exact abbreviation IT, but these are standard tables that are used for traffic engineers to establish. And the reason you don't have a weekday component is that the traffic is considered to be standard across the board, is my understanding. So versus assisted living and condo townhouse, you may have different weekday components. This particular line from that code does not have a weekday component. It's carried across. So these are taken from the IT table. I can't speak specifically to the actual guides or standards themselves. We need our city engineer. We certainly could report back to council, but we would need Chris's input on those exact breakdowns. And he's in the process of breaking down that larger traffic study that looks at not just these numbers, but also the impact on different roadways.
Mr. Strachan, it would seem to me that to answer Mr. Councillor Holmes' question to some extent, when you have a considerable number of the 424 units, or whatever it's going to be, 404 or 424, a good number of those units, those folks are not likely to be driving.
That's not what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about
I'm
then?
talking about only the 259 residential those are the only ones I'm talking about.
Okay, good.
And it seems to be a pretty huge difference, and frankly quite unbelievable that you know, that a residential condo townhouse would generate 5.81, whereas a low-rise residential condo would generate 8.58. And this is where you get this 30% drop. I mean, it just doesn't really,
Well,
it doesn't
sounds
seem-
to me like we need a further explanation to satisfy your
That's what I'm
question.
asking.
Yeah, well, I would understand that Mr. Strachan doesn't quite have that detail for us.
Yeah, and I would need our city engineer's assistance with that.
Yeah.
And we certainly can prepare for the next update report, an answer to that question as to how that works and how those tables work.
Yeah.
And Chris could
Yeah.
speak to those components.
Yeah, it's a good question, Councillor Holmes, and sorry if I sounded otherwise, because I think it amounts to these tables generated by engineers are not easily interpreted perhaps by some of us, and so to have an engineering explanation, you know, through to us at an update would be a good idea. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Keith.
Well, not a question in terms of the report, but I would like to bring a resolution forward regarding a public hearing. And the resolution I would bring forward, and I haven't really written it, so I'll just ad hoc it, just that we schedule a public hearing for Banks Crescent and delegate it to staff for a decision as to the time and date when all needed reports have been supplied and we have statutory notification requirements can be met.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? So what we're asking for is staff to consider the option of arriving at a public hearing date based on the information that they see that and the timeframes that they would need for that information. So what we're doing is not setting a specific date here, but what we're doing is asking council or asking staff to look over their information, the time requirements to complete the reviews that engineering is making, et cetera, and that staff will come up with a suggested date that council would either accept or suggest a separate date. So I don't think that's necessarily an unreasonable thought. Anybody like to second that, please? Councillor Barclay.
I'll second that with the comment that
Yeah.
if it provides some clarity, fine. It seems to me that's the process that would happen regardless. Right? That we wouldn't really be scheduling a public hearing until staff said that all the information was available and recommended it to
I
us.
think, Councillor Barkle, what this does for us and for staff is to provide the clarity of intent to move forward, to consider all the information that might be available. And so I would like to see all the information that is being presented, that staff is now perusing, as well as all the opportunities that there would be for the public to speak at a public hearing. And so that's a normal procedure, is to have a public hearing, hear from the public, but what isn't quite normal here is that this is a very complex development, and that we're suggesting to staff that once they've looked over what information they have to consider in the detail that's required for adequate answers, then they will come back to us with a suggested time frame. That's all, and that sets some clarity for the public and for the developer and for council. Yes.
So I'm not opposed to that, but I am opposed to it not having a deadline as to when we will actually be setting this public hearing date. I think that what people would like to know is how many more weeks or months until there is a time that is actually set. So
well-
I'm not suggesting that, this moment we need to set a public hearing date, but we do need to know how soon are we talking about having this public hearing, and is there a deadline? Because I think that's really what people would like to know.
Okay, no, I agree with you, Councillor Carlson, and that, I spent some time poring over the calendar looking at what I might consider in my own mind as being somewhat reasonable. And I can see moving into, I don't see the middle of August, I think it's from what I've understand from staff, that's far too early for them to, for engineering, for example, to provide the kind of information that is required, and that there a longer time frame is required. And I see other things that are popping up in September, but it could easily happen sometime in September. So I think we're looking at somewhere between a month and 2 months, but that would be the finality of a date, and what we can really come up with is dependent upon staff's adjudication of the information. But what we're doing here is providing intent to move to a public hearing and have staff sit down and decide, okay, what do they have to, how close can they, what sort of time frame can they really meet, is what I'm saying. Councillor Peak, you were up next, I believe.
Yeah, I feel that we should give the opportunity for staff to review what they have to come in and give us a time frame that would fit within what they see that opportunity being. So that I think that report could come back to us. That's why I didn't feel it necessary to put a date in it.
Well, we could actually have a date for
But that's what
staff
the
to come
motion's
back
on the
to us,
table,
yes.
and that's why we
Yeah,
can have discussion.
Yeah. Councillor Barr.
But the committee of the whole.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think
sorry.
Councillor Holmes
That's
was
right,
in.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
At the committee of the whole meeting this morning, we were advised that once we have a public hearing, no further information
correct.
can come forward. And so I would be loath to set an arbitrary date for a public hearing with the risk that there is additional information that hasn't come forward prior to that date. I mean, sure, everybody on all sides wants to move this along as quickly as possible. Nobody's dragging their feet on purpose, so setting arbitrary dates is not something I'd vote for here.
Okay, I think that the intent of the motion that was presented by Councillor Peak was to direct staff to, I guess as it's read here, as soon as possible, a time and date when suitable facilities are available and statutory notifications of
That was not
requirements,
the
et cetera.
motion that I brought forward.
Okay, I'm
No.
sorry.
No, it's not. No.
I'm sorry. Could you read it back, please? Yeah, I didn't catch it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I have written
Sorry,
down
Councillor Peak.
is that staff be directed to schedule a public hearing for Banks Development after staff has determined how much information is still outstanding. Something along those lines.
No, okay. I was going to say,
Okay. I think Councillor Peak has some question about that.
it's very
Go
hard to write down what I say at
Yeah,
that
it's-
particular
yeah.
time.
So if you could repeat that for me, that would be
I
nice.
would like staff to bring forward the option for
Quiet,
a
please.
public hearing upon determining the length of time it will take to receive the necessary information to complete the process that we have started.
Okay, we had a seconder, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, just a second. And if I may, I do agree with Councillor Barkwell's statements that we want some certainty that we're moving forward, but with council, I see that there are further things that need to be filled in. I don't know what they will show us. And if I don't have that information, then I don't feel confident in making a decision. So I need that information before we get to a public hearing. And it's important for us to be transparent in how we do this. This council has felt that we need good communication, and good communication requires that we stick to the process that we've brought into play. And I think we need to finish that process to be able to make a comprehensive decision.
Thank you. Councillor Barkle.
Along the lines of the discussions for the public hearing and the transparency, at our second information session, we ran out of time. People were on the speakers list, and we left with the undertaking that we would have a further public information session, which everybody maybe not everybody knows is entirely different than a public hearing. Does council feel that a public hearing is going to be sufficient and we don't need to have a second information session?
I think Councillor Barkwell, having moved through all kinds of additional informations that have come our way, plus, as Mr. Strachan's indicated and the motion indicates, that we'll have all the information that we need to be able to move to a public hearing. And so all that information in terms of openness, et cetera, our website, for example, and the processes in these meetings have received every bit of information that's been available to us. The public has submitted every bit of information that they felt they wanted to submit and continue to do so. And the same thing with the developer and information that flows from staff. So, you know, this council made a determined effort when we started out to have an open format. Hence, we had the 15 minutes at the beginning of a meeting, 15 minutes at the end of a meeting for the public to make comment. That did not exist in the prior councils that I was on in this community. So we have made a very concerted, strong effort to have an open process. Our website is very complete, and I don't think people who are for or against any particular project should complain at all about the ability to access our website with their information. So there's going to be a consuming amount of information, perhaps, in its resolution to come to us, and I don't see the need at this point to have yet a second information session when we have a tremendous amount of information flowing to us from the public, from the developer, and it's all available for all people who want to scrutinize it. Councillor Holmes.
Once we have all the information that we can receive, we might decide we don't want to move to a public hearing. We might decide we want to, say, for example, rescind second reading instead, in which case this motion is kind of presumptuous, and for that reason I wouldn't be able to support it.
That's fine. Yeah. I think the motion has been presented, though, to move to staff to provide the information about moving forward. So I think we're looking at that resolution. Going to read that to us again, please?
I will. That staff be directed to provide council with options for a public hearing date upon determining the length of time to receive and review outstanding information.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, has everybody had a good kick at the can here? Councillor Carlson.
Just to add, be interesting to see what time frame we're looking at, and I hope to be able to attend.
So do I. We may even have an additional council member by that time. Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. 2 opposed?
3?
3?
I don't know. 3?
No, I think there were 2.
For sure. Just ask for
opposed.
Opposed, please. Sorry.
And
yeah.
please put it on the record, Tricia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. The motion carries. Now we also have a motion to receive Mr. Strachan's report, I believe. So someone like to bring that forward. Councillor Carlson.
I will move the updated report dated July 20th, 2017 from the Director of Development Services in relation to the OCP amendment and rezoning for 13601 Banks Crescent be received.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please. Councillor Peak, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you very much. None opposed. Moving ahead to 12.3, Wharton Street Properties. Mr. Strachan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As requested by council at their committee of the whole meeting last, we're reporting to council with a recommendation in relation to preparing and issuing a request for proposal for the disposal of what's referenced to as the Wharton Street properties. Staff have made a number of recommendations in regards to guiding terms for that deposition. You'll note that the guiding terms are less detailed than what we previously provided. As we had discussions with council, the idea of bringing forward what development would be proposed for the site, and it's outlined in the report a number of components with this process that council should be aware of. Most notably, the component on what council could do following the RFP, being they could accept one of the proposals and just direct staff to move forward with a contract. They could accept the proposal, one of the proposals with conditions or proposed amendments. at which point there would be a negotiated process with the proponent. They would see a proposal be finalized for council's approval. The third being they could seek individual, more information from individuals. So proponents may submit a package and council asks for detailed information before going forward. And then council also could reject all proposals received. So at this point, there's been interest from organizations both in and outside of the community and looking at this site for proposed development. And this process would bring those to a formal proposal for council to consider, but does not include an obligation for council to select any of those, and would offer the flexibility to provide conditions or request amendments or negotiate with those proponents for a proposal that's acceptable to council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we'll wait for Councillor Carlson to get her seat. Okay, council questions of the planner, please. Councillor Barkle.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the Director of Development Services here on item D. It says the development is to include buildings 2 to 4 stories in height. Buildings over 4 stories should include provisions for limiting impact on adjacent properties. So if a proposal included a 5-story building, how do you go about limiting the impact of an extra story?
So there could be a number of options. The option that was presented to council previously included a reduced square footage for that top floor, so they can bring the building back. So that the massing from the street, you would only see 4 stories, but there's actually a 5th story that's pulled
penthouse,
back in.
yeah.
But we left it a little more open in this proposal to allow for the architects that are preparing the proposal to be more flexible and present what they feel would be reducing that impact. And it may be done through architectural or that reduced footprint or some other form of caricature to the building that may achieve the same goal. So more just focusing on the goal than the means to get there.
Thanks.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I don't really have any problem with the outlined kind of terms of reference, but I'm just, when we talked about it in committee of the whole, we did talk about, you know, concerns that it might be too prescriptive and not allow different proposals who other people might have their own ideas or other to come forward with their suggestions. And I'm just, and I thought at the time that we were told that the terms of reference would come back at another time. That I'm just a bit confused about that, and does this allow people with other ideas to come forward and that we can consider, even if they're not strictly within the terms of reference as set out here?
So we had fairly lengthy conversations on the approach to bring back to council, either keep it much less prescriptive, which this would be, some general parameters, plus the ability to give alternate solutions for consideration, and keep a very broad spectrum, which is what we're suggesting here. Or council could then, if you didn't want to have it this broad, we could come back with to another committee whole with more specific. But this is the intent of this is that it's broad, and that the solutions that would come forward or the proposals would be of a broad range for council's consideration. It wouldn't limit very much.
So,
go ahead.
So just to clarify, so if somebody came forward with a proposal and said, well, yeah, but we didn't, this one thing, maybe earth tones or whatever isn't what we had in mind, we'd like this. I mean, they're not automatically struck off the list.
No.
That's you know, we don't want to limit.
No, what we're saying is exactly that tell us what, there's nothing that like that in here. It's all about tell us what, address these items in your proposals. Tell us the details about them.
Okay. Councillor Peak.
Yeah, I did have some discussion with Mr. Strachan regarding the fact that there was less specificity in this particular outline, and I do think that allowing a broader scope in the direction of the RFP is a good thing. I want to emphasize that council has always felt that this is a premier property. It's our downtown. We want a quality product that looks amazing and allows for a mixed demographic. And I think that this proposal gives us the opportunity for people that may be interested in doing this to come forward. And we have had some expression of interest from the community in a couple of ways, and I think that this allows that opportunity to come forward. So I'm pleased it's here, and I'm pleased that it isn't as prescriptive as it was when it first came to us.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes, did you have an additional comment?
Not at all.
Felt the right
You sure?
comment.
'Cause it seems like you might.
It's great. I'll even move it. I'll even.
You'll move it?
introduce the
Wow,
motion.
amazing,
Want
okay.
me to read the whole thing?
No.
No, well, I don't know. Okay, yeah.
I'll
as
introduce the
presented.
motion as presented.
Okay, seconder, please, Councillor Peak. Okay, any further discussion?
I just have one question.
Go ahead. Sure?
I agree with Councillor Holmes. I thought that it was coming back for more discussion, but I, like Councillor Peak, I'm satisfied with what's laid out here. It seems to me to be quite wide open. I do have one question, though, and that is the whole idea of the RFP is for disposal of property that the district owns. I'm wondering, and this is a process thing, so probably for our CAO, when is the what's it called, appraisal done for the value of the properties?
Have we had, do we have a appraisal on that one?
Not-
When it's, typically when you're putting it out for an RFP, you don't necessarily do an appraisal. We could have an appraisal done depending on the results of the RFP. I think council would get the RFPs and then the submissions and then determine whether to move forward without one or not. Because it's a market, see, appraisal's based on market values. And when you get RFPs, when you have a wide open process like that, that is judging the market.
Okay.
But council may decide to have a separate appraisal done.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
think that Councillor Carlson was first and
Just
Councillor
a quick question. It says to advertise beginning in August 2017. For a project of this scale, how long would an RFP stay open? And when would we be hearing back about it?
We would have to have some conversation on that. We have a large RFP that we're working on for something else right now, and we're looking at a 7-week period of time to have it open. So we'd have to look at best practices and determine, but it needs to be, to be able to put in a detailed enough submission, it needs to be a fairly lengthy period of time.
Councillor Barkle.
Would an RFP come to us, a question and a comment? Maybe I'll start with the comment first, sir. I find point C particularly important, that there be penalties for not moving forward on a schedule and timeline for when the property was returned to the district if it, construction didn't go forward. So C is essential here. In a project, if we got an RFP, would the proposal come to us saying, well, we'll build something that looks like this and we'll give you X number of dollars for the land? Or does the dollar amount come sort of after we've accepted their proposal and then we start negotiations?
Generally, it would include a proposed dollar value.
Okay.
And those terms would be set out in the actual detailed RFP as to be what's presented. But normally, it does include a proposal for purchase.
Okay.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Barkwell that I'm happy to see that provision for penalties and or return of the property if it doesn't proceed, and I wish we'd done that with the old RCMP site, actually.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Trainer.
I don't know if this goes into the RFP or not, but is there any way to encourage developers to submit environmentally friendly proposals or something that's innovative in that area?
Again, there's no requirement for council to accept any of them. I think you'll find that many do come with that, but I think in the wording, we would generally state in the preamble of the RFP that council's interested in innovative or environmentally proactive submissions. So usually in the preamble, you would definitely state that they're encouraged to look at those options.
So we can put that in there then? Just the way
You
you
would-
said
yeah,
it?
just totally,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we've got to move on a second, right? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. The motion carries. None opposed. Thank you very much. 12.4. CO? Mr. Strachan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a report related to heritage inventory. So council in their 2017-2021 financial plan has planned for $25,000 for a heritage plan. In reviewing what we have in place in our heritage program with the Heritage Advisory Commission, we did determine that there's an identified base data that's absent or is limiting moving forward for the initiatives of the Heritage Advisory Commission, and that is related to the inventory data. So this data is the core data that forms the basis and background for programs such as a registry or heritage grant incentives. Without this core data, we are really limited in where we can go forward. So the original inventory was completed at a time and under guidelines that were related mostly to architectural features. So that the significance of a building was tied directly to the architect that designed it or the architectural features within that building, whereas now the provincial guidelines and the national guidelines also include other components, such as the people that live there, the cultural significance of the building, the importance of the building to the community, the importance of the people that were in that building to the community, as well as the use of that building. So significant uses have a role as well. So the dynamics have changed on inventory, and our inventory unfortunately doesn't currently reflect that. We've also unfortunately lost a number of buildings. So an update would look at consolidating efforts that have been made in the last few years to create heritage lists, but not without what's been done recently has not included that true inventory component and establish guidelines for evaluating those buildings. And that would be done in conjunction with the Heritage Advisory Commission. There'd be criteria established as to evaluation. From that base data, we would be able to move forward with other programs for the Heritage Advisory Commission and through council for the Heritage Program for the community.
Thank you. Questions of the planner, please. Councillor Peak.
So the last inventory was done in 1994, which is over 20 years. So this would be a considerable update. And as you said, the descriptions and the things that you look at specifically are quite different now.
That's correct.
The work that the Heritage Committee has been doing has not just aimed for an inventory because they want the opportunity to actually start saving buildings. Will this give us that opportunity or work towards that?
So the key components in the legislation center on inventory to registry to programs and bylaws. Without the inventory data, you can't create a heritage registry. So this is the first point in council being able to consider a heritage registry, which then attaches parameters to restrict the removal of buildings or prevent buildings from being removed. As a part of that, though, under the BC legislation, there must be a benefit to those property owners offered. And this is where that's key, is there has to be opportunities that property owner then gets. There has to be a benefit to them for being on a heritage registry. So that's why you need to then go forward with heritage incentive grants or some other plaquing program or public recognition. Those components are tied directly to that. So that's sort of where we've been working in recent years, is to try and look at that component, but not having that core base to do a registry on has been limiting what we can do for heritage protection and conservation, as well as for community consultation and public input. Because a registry, the property owners are notified, they give their approval to be entered onto the registry, And that registry forms part of the official community plan and is that base that everything else gets sort of pivoted around. So until that gets done, we're somewhat limited in what we can do, both from a legislative standpoint as well as for an information standpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Strachan.
Councillor Holmes.
Okay, I understand the importance of the inventory, and you can't really do a heritage plan until you have the inventory updated. But we budgeted $25,000 for a heritage plan, and so just to get this straight, that we're now proposing to use that money just to update the inventory, and it would cost $25,000 just to update the inventory?
That's what's been proposed to council at this point in time. And that we're anticipating that an RFP would likely come in around that area because of the information that has to be collected. So there is some information that's been collected on buildings, but there's a whole bunch of new information that was collected in the form of lists or anecdotal information, as well as there's new information that's available now, as well as those additional criteria of evaluation which weren't done previously. So looking at the cultural significance, looking at the history of ownership, looking at the uses in those buildings. Outside of that, there's also other types of properties and buildings that would not have been included in the inventory, would be included now, such as agricultural buildings. There's barn features in the community that are unique that wouldn't have formed part of that inventory, as well as landscape features. So important landscape features I've seen in registries. Rose gardens, for example, historical rose garden in Vernon formed part of the Heritage Registry, as did significant trees. There's significant groves of trees and things like that. So there's other things that would form part of that inventory that wouldn't be a part of the base data that's going to need to be collected. We also have a number of different pockets of information that's held both with members of the Heritage Advisory Committee, but also with the museum that would need to be consolidated and brought together.
It is expected that it would, an RFP would be about $25,000 for it, and it typically is in municipalities of this size and complexity.
Okay, Councillor Barclay.
Yeah, this has been discussed for quite some
sorry.
time. Oh.
I'm sorry, I think.
Quite some time,
Sorry.
and so it's finally, getting to first steps, as you pointed out, that we can't really go forward with anything else until we have this inventory, and a lot of people in the community are concerned about preserving the heritage aspects of the community. So I'd like to move that the staff be directed to proceed with the request for proposals to update the heritage inventory. Any seconders?
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Councillor Booth.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Strachan. Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor. Once the heritage plan is done, is that a document that will guide the development services in, let's see, establishing or maybe revising bylaws that pertain to heritage in the community?
So what the inventory will do is provide that core data for establishing a heritage plan through the OCP. So we would look towards an amendment to the OCP to include some heritage parameters around registry and inventory and incentives. And then from that would be a plan that's more specific as to what initiatives would be taken any given year. And then council would consider those initiatives. And where those initiatives lie, we would be seeking input from the community on whether it's those incentives would be around incentive grants, or would be around restoration grants, or would be around plaquing programs. And there's a number of different tools that are out there. We certainly wouldn't need to recreate the wheel. There's lots of good examples of heritage programs that we would be borrowing from and bringing forward for council to consider.
Okay. May I ask one other question? This is just a curiosity. What age is a house, or is there an age, maybe there isn't, for a house to be considered heritage?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, and that's a discussion that's taking place in a lot of communities across BC, and the fact that a lot of the original inventory work was done and they drew a line around 1920 to 1930 unless there was a specific architectural feature to it. And where that should be in the future is definitely being debated, because those original inventories, most of them in small communities in the interior, were done about this period. And when they're updating, where that line should be as far as looking at criteria especially now that there's other factors being considered, culturally significant factors, as to what date is not so much important as it was in the past.
Right. More the significance of the feature or
And
the
how it contributes
right.
to the community's
community, right.
heritage.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. We have the motion and a seconder. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries, none opposed. So we're moving ahead to item 13.1. Mr. Strachan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, we have an official community plan amendment and rezoning application for our 5418 Nixon Road. This is a parcel down in Trout Creek. It's currently designated agricultural and zoned A1, however, is not within the ALR, and is proposed to be redesignated to low-density residential and rezoned to RSD1, residential medium lot zone, in order to allow for the property to be subdivided into single-family lots. The area includes a combination of 3 zoning districts. There's RSD1, RSD2, and RSD3 in the neighborhood. And there's examples listed in the report of RSD1 development adjacent to the highways as well as at Lighthouse Landing. The proposal is for 22 single-family lots. And you'll note in the report that there's a process that would follow the rezoning, which would be subdivision, where there would be detailed engineering that would form part of that analysis for subdivision. And it's pointed out by the engineering that they are conducting a review of the existing infrastructure, both the sewer and water, and doing some modeling that would be dealt with at subdivision, but they're going to be providing some more information to the applicant as well as council as what would be required for those off-site works. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
This isn't the first time that we've seen something like this, especially in Trout Creek. I'm wondering where in the process we start talking about sidewalks to get children to the school safely and bike lanes and all those things that come along with a proposal like this, at least have traditionally.
Mr. Mayor, this is the opportunity that we would look at pedestrian connectivity. Sidewalks in particular form part of the subdivision servicing bylaw, so there would be sidewalks as a standard requirement. However, pedestrian corridors, so connectivity, additional connectivity beyond what's required, this would be council's opportunity to look at those options.
At this time? Now?
Not necessarily now, but in this process.
I see. Thank you. Councillor Traynor.
I'm also wondering at what stage in the process could we look at green space that could be incorporated into this development?
So as a part of the subdivision process would be when there would be parkland or other components that would form part of it. So there would be parkland dedication that's done at subdivision. That could be either done as parkland or cash in lieu according to the parks plan.
But to be clear, council isn't part of that process.
No,
So in response to Councillor Trainor's question, is there any other opportunity for council to have any input on that?
Through the rezoning process, council could provide additional information for the approving officer to consider its subdivision.
So we would do that then at third reading or before then?
At any point in the process, council could add conditions. So you'd be adding conditions to the rezoning, which would be added into either a covenant or a component to be addressed. In this particular circumstance, it would likely be through a covenant requiring it to be addressed at subdivision.
Okay. The reason why I brought that up is because there was one development down in Trout Creek that has a park component, and it's really nice, and it's allowed the neighborhood to kind of flow together well. And there's been other developments where that hasn't happened, and I think that this would be a good opportunity to perhaps add a little bit of green space to, improve the area and help it flow with the rest of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Councillor Peak.
I support the discussion on parks within subdivisions because it does convey a different sense of community when you have parks within that particular development. So I really support that discussion and your remarks. If I may, too, Mr. Strachan, this shows that there would be two different ways of getting in and out of this particular block of land, and it would be in on Britain, or you could come in on whatever the new one might be off of Wharf Street. Am I correct?
That's correct. So the pre-plan for this area.
You got your little pointer, I think.
Pre-plan for this area and the previous subdivision on Brighton was created with the purpose of a continuation of this road. So there's two avenues for continuation of that road, and that's why there isn't a cul-de-sac at the end here, is to either carry it through to Nixon Road, and there was concern about the proximity of that access to the elementary school, or to carry it south, which is what's proposed here, that would carry it down to Wharf and provide that outlet for traffic to create the circulation that's necessary in the neighborhood. So Brighton doesn't end in a cul-de-sac. It ends with pre-plan for future subdivisions to carry through in some way.
So if I may, just following through on that, then Nixon Road becomes the entranceway for the properties along that side of the subdivision property?
The lots that are proposed along that frontage would access off Nixon, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
With residential driveways.
Yes, okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
I just have one
Yes,
question,
Councillor
sorry.
Booth.
Sorry, I
No,
kind of
go ahead.
am pondering this. The property directly north, I think, I'm not very good at my directions, north of the subject site, is that agriculture? Is it zoned agricultural?
I believe so at this time it is, yes.
So there would be some kind of barrier between the subject site and that site? Like a, what do they call it, a buffer, an agricultural buffer?
I'd have to look into that and get back to council on what's required.
I think that's only required if it's ALR land, isn't it?
I don't believe it's ALR land.
No, I know it's not. But,
Staff would look after that at the time. it goes
yeah,
through.
it's, as far as I know, when you're looking at a different use pattern, if it's ALR land, then there has to be a ALC would demand a buffer between the two parcels. So we've always tried to do that.
Okay.
CAO.
But also,
It's
in a subdivision, if it was agricultural land that was in use as agricultural land, the approving officer may require it in their preliminary letters, in the PLRs, but it depends on the nature of the subdivision.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Peak.
Could I bring the resolution forward?
Yes, please do.
That the official community plan amendment bylaw 2017-022 be introduced and given first, second reading, and that the zoning bylaw amendment be introduced and given first and second reading, and that a public hearing be held on August 28, 2017 to receive public feedback on bylaw number 2017-002 and 023.
Thank you. Seconder?
I have a question.
Seconder? Councillor Barkle? Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
So can we just clarify then the question that Councillor Traynor raised about green space? Now that there's a motion on the table for first and second reading, is that something we should be discussing tonight before letting this go to a public hearing, or is it something that we can discuss before the public hearing? I'm just wondering for clarity.
Council could include now a condition of rezoning that it be reviewed, or staff could report back with more information on public space and whether there's what the recommendation from staff would be on creating additional green space.
That might be valuable.
Because the creation of green space does include cost as well as a look at adjacency in the master plan. So under that proposal, you could direct staff to report back in advance of the public hearing with information on potential green space in the neighborhood.
I would like to see that, especially as it relates to community and connectivity and all those things that are important when we make a new subdivision of that size right beside a school, which will hopefully be attracting families, and it would be nice to have them all know each other instead of just having a fence between everybody's yard and nobody can see over it, you know? I think it would be valuable to create some community through this process if possible.
Yeah, I agree, Councillor Carlson. I do keep in mind, though, that, for example, to create pedestrian connectivity in the neighborhood is what I would like to see. But keep in mind that in terms of park space that is available to the public in the general area, we've got Paul Beach, we have other beach accesses, et cetera, et cetera. One of the key things that I resent about developments is where they trap residents and there isn't connectivity to those amenities. And so I would be keeping that in mind, in that we have a considerable amount of green space in the immediate area that is satisfying a lot of the residential. But what lacks in many of them is the connectivity for residents to actually access.
And just to go along with that, there needs to be a lot of thought when you're doing isolated green spaces just on the maintenance and the operational costs of it. Not to say it's not, it just needs to be thought out and planned on where it's going.
The other thing is, just Councillor Holmes, is that in terms of contribution, many times a contribution can be made that will actually facilitate, say, addition to a green space that perhaps already exists, or encouraging development of green space somehow that may be lacking in its development at this point. So it depends on how the contribution is made, is what I'm getting at. Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your comments there, Mr. Mayor. I think there's quite a bit of green space there, with this include the schoolyard as well. What in terms of connectivity, what I'd like to see would be a pedestrian path from Nixon, somewhere onto whatever that new street will be. That's connectivity to me. That's how you connect neighborhoods.
Walk right through.
Yeah. Yeah, because I happen to personally live in a neighborhood that is a crescent. There was access at one point, and somebody purchased the access, so there's no pedestrian access from that area, and it's all built around the car, which, we're not trying to facilitate as much anymore. We want to see pedestrian use, walking, etc. So I would like to see something in this development that is somewhat centralized pedestrian access. In other words, a pedestrian access on the northern border wouldn't help me very much as a resident. I would rather see some sort of access that is more generally applicable to the neighborhood itself. But then again, that's up to design and so on, I suppose. Councillor Traynor.
I just wanted to clarify then, were we going to get a report on some options for green space for that property?
We would report back to council if the council directed staff to do so on whichever items they chose. So it sounds like council is looking towards, is there a potential recommendation around green space within this proposed subdivision, or is there green space identified in the master plan, which is likely in and around the elementary school that's pre-identified, and we would take then in cash in lieu of dedication of parkland, and whether there's an opportunity for a pedestrian corridor, and we'd review that with our city engineers and provide a recommendation around that.
Okay, thank you. Is that Councillor Traynor?
Yeah, I'm happy to see that. I think that having green space, we have an opportunity here, and I think that green space is a really great thing, and that it attracts people. That's why they often pick developments instead of ones where every single tree's been removed. It's just flat and paved. So I think that there's a really good opportunity here to do something creative. And like I said, there's another example of Woodbridge where they did that, and it's really great. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thanks.
Councillor Barco.
I think that after we pass this motion, that we should put forward another resolution concerning our report for pedestrian access and green space. I agree with you that there's a lot of green space in Trail Creek already, so the 5% of the value of the subdivision which they have to contribute might be better taken and applied to improvements to the green space that they have in Trail Creek already. But I look forward to a report from staff on that.
I'm not sure the resolution's required, the way you
Yeah.
stated.
So
CEO?
just so maybe Mr. Strachan is more clear than I am. Typically, so is council asking about the green space that's part of the subdivision that's required by legislation that the approving officer would, has the authority to deal with? Or are you talking about additional, separate from this? It's unclear to me.
What I'd propose would be that the staff report back to council with what is identified within the master plan, so that information is available for council, as well as a recommendation from staff based on what's in our planning and on what the costs would be, as to create an additional green space beyond what those are. So as the approving officer, you would review what's in plans already in making that decision, and we'd be working with Parks and Recreation on those plans. So we would move forward with what's in those plans. So once council sees that and determines what the approving officer would review at subdivision, they could then make a decision if they wished for additional green space or to provide specific recommendations to the approving officer about parks in that area.
Just so council's aware that council doesn't have the authority to overrule the approving officer that's why we're talking about the additional green space and to present what he's looking at and then whether or not it's enough or additional should be required.
So I have a question, I guess, of Mr. Strachan or the CAO. Given that the public hearing date is set in this motion at the 28th, would you be able to have information for us by the 14th?
So we would bring back a report to council for August 14th.
Okay.
If for some reason we're unable to provide that information, we'd be recommending council reschedule the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. Thank you very much. Okay, council, are we ready? All in favor? Thank you. The motion carries. None opposed. Thank you very much. We've got 13.2,
Yeah.
RCMP equipment purchase, CAO.
So, council, we had hoped to have more information than we actually have today. The RCMP have asked us our Sergeant Faulkner has asked us to bring forward a new directive that RCMP offices have received in order to continue in drug investigations and to handle substance. There's modifications that need to be done to the facilities. There's a temporary solution of this hood vent that they're required to purchase, and the estimated cost of these hood vents is $22,000, 70% of which would be our responsibility, so just over $15,000, which would be the district of Summerland's responsibility. There's no extra room in the budget for RCMP for these kind of unexpected purchases. What we've asked Sergeant Faulkner for is to understand better of whether this was a directive from police services in British Columbia or how it came to be, because it is something that municipalities are lobbying to say, with these policing services contract, you need to understand the cost, and if you're going to impose mandatory things imminently, we just don't have the base to do this. With this particular cost, they had $9,000 in purchases of chairs that they're willing to say, no, we don't need to make to purchase those chairs, and then we could, David, maybe you want to speak of how we'd finance the rest of it.
Yeah, so as Linda mentioned, there's $9,000 in the current year budget for the chairs. The remaining shortfall of approximately $7,000 would either be made up through the unallocated surplus with the district, which is sitting at just over $1 million, or alternatively, a capital works project reserve sits at about $790,000 right now. So there are funds available for this type of a project. However, we would like clarification as to where this project's coming from, and as Linda mentioned, so.
The difficulty for us is that they're doing a bulk purchase of these fans, so there's a time, the reason that they're angst is that there's a time restriction on getting their order in. Sergeant Faulkner became ill today, and so he wasn't available to get the last minute detail. So it's a little odd to be coming with such short notice, but we'd be asking council for a resolution to approve the expenditure for the hood fan and to bring back a revision to the financial, amendment to the financial plan. And then at that time, we would also bring the details back so that we can have more discussion on how these come to be like that.
Okay, Councillor Carlson, Councillor Peak, then Councillor Barclay.
I think you just answered it, but would this, in a roundabout way, be a conditional approval based on more information to come? But will you need to give approval now because it might not come back fast enough?
Yeah, I think what we'd be looking at is approval to go ahead and verify the information from RCMP and as staff to grant the permission. We would still have to do a formal bylaw amendment, but if you give us permission, we do want to see the documents because we want to better understand. But if it's not approved, there's certain investigations they can't do, and they would have to go to Penticton and do them. They will not do them in our Summerland detachment without this hood fan.
Okay, Councillor Peak.
So you know what the hood fan is there for? Like, I have no idea what this piece of equipment is for.
Well, and we may not get too many details from
Okay.
them, but it is in relation to drug investigations that involve substance.
Okay.
And for that they're not, it's been mandated that they're not to do those investigations.
Unless they have this
That's right.
particular piece
And
of
it is an
equipment.
option for them to go. So ultimately, the bigger picture is that they're moving towards entire RCMP detachments needing to be vented and plumbed in. And this is a temporary or interim measure. And we definitely need more information, but because of the timing, we would like to work on getting the information. Sergeant Faulkner's new and working with us. But in the meantime, knowing that once we have it, that we can move forward with it.
Subsequent to that, then I could see us approving this. We will work forward to find out what information we need. Otherwise, I could see approving it and taking it from the surplus. I was busy thinking so, or the other. But I think it's important to keep our working detachment in our own municipality, so that I would want them to be here doing what investigation they need to do.
Councillor Barclay.
It sounds like they need a fume hood,
That's right.
which, anybody who's worked in a lab is familiar with. But do we have any assurances that it isn't going to cost an additional $22,000 or $50,000 for building modifications to install this?
Well,
And-
that's the estimate that we've got right now, and that's, if, I think it's a whole different picture.
That's
If
an
it was
installed-
that much more, we would have to say we're not going to be able
Okay.
to meet those deadlines. We'd have to come back to council after that period of time.
So that was an installed price, it wasn't just for the equipment?
That is the best information that we have. Everything I've said so far is what the information we
Yeah.
know. They weren't able to give us anything more today. They feel that is what it will cost installed, but
Okay.
like I say, if we would just say, if council gave us the an approximate cost of $22,000, if it was different than that, then we would just say we can't be part of the bulk pricing, and we would wait till next time.
I'm assuming then they didn't tell you how often in a year that this equipment would
We
be
haven't had
used?
any
No,
further,
no,
that is
'cause
the issue, that
Yeah.
is what David's been attempting to get, and but there's been other issues going on in the last couple of days with the RCMP and with some action that they've had to deal with, so, and then with one of them getting sick today, just
Yeah.
wasn't able.
'Cause the reason I ask is I'm mindful of the jail cells that we have that
Yeah.
don't get used, and if Penticton's an option, then it's all a question of once a year or once a month. Yeah.
It has been highly recommended by Sergeant Faulkner, has said that
Yeah.
as the detachment commander, he recommends that we do this purchase.
Okay, Councillor Holmes. You may
Did you say this would be an interim measure? Do you know how interim?
We don't know how interim, and we will be finding that out too. Like if it meant that in the capital plan next year, if we find out in this conversation over the next week that the idea is that they're going to be looking for a home HVAC system upgrade next year, then we would say again that that's beyond the scope of authority that council's granted us for this purchase, and we would bring it back to reconsider whether to buy it for the rest of the balance of this year. So the only way that we would, if council passes a resolution to authorize us to have these conversations, the only way we'd go forward with it is if it showed that that there was a mandate from the provincial government, they wouldn't be able to do their investigations, and that it wasn't going to look like it was just for a 3 or 6 months period of time, that it was a reasonable expenditure in our chief financial officer's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make sure the RCMP have the tools to do their jobs and everything, but at the same time, it's kind of unfair on us to make a decision based on such a lack of information. So,
if you would typically might have had more in your RCMP budget, there may have been a capital budget for equipment that we would have allocated, and then we as staff would like when there's a small piece of equipment needed for one of our buildings here, it wouldn't necessarily have to come to council. The bigger picture is this lobbying that municipalities need to continue doing on the police services contracts, and the need to have some more assurances and what we end up paying and what the RCMP should be required to be paying. So we do understand that it's not ideal at all.
So do we have a specific motion?
I'm just working on it.
Oh, sorry, I just, I had just said it, that, did you write it out? No?
Staff be directed to clarify the details of the purchase of a hood vent for the Summerland attachment at a cost
22.
of is 22,000?
I think it's just that staff be authorized to purchase the hood vent for the Summerland detachment to a maximum of 22,000, and further to bring be directed to bring a financial plan amendment for council's consideration.
So would someone like to have that resolution as stated, please? Councillor Peak, thank you. The seconder? Councillor Trainer, thank you. Any further discussion required?
So
go ahead.
So basically, we're just giving them what they want without knowing, really.
Well, knowing, I mean, you're giving staff the authority to use you're delegating responsibility to staff to determine whether it's a reasonable request, that it's been mandated, that they don't have a choice.
But that's not what the motion said.
That you're directing staff
to purchase.
The authorizing staff to purchase and directing staff to bring a financial plan amendment.
Which means we're buying it.
Authorizing staff doesn't mean we're going to do it.
Okay.
Again, it involves Councillor Holmes, I think, discussions with the RCMP, given the information that they may present. Councillor Holmes, I think what we're saying is that staff would be authorized to have further discussions with the RCMP. If those discussions aren't satisfactory, then it may come back again.
I mean, if council wants, council can also say, no, we just simply can't do, we simply can't do this, and we'll purchase it later. It may be more expensive, it may not be more expensive. That's perfectly fine as well. It's just, from our consideration, it's not out of the realm of what we would typically look at doing.
I think we've been told by our financial officer too that there is a ways and means of handling this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I trust your judgment. I'm sure you'll do the right thing. I just want to make sure that that's what we're saying.
Councillor Peak, did you have something to add? You had your hand
I
up.
think it may be a valid point that Councillor Holmes is making, which is that we aren't saying that there's a particular condition around that we would qualify whether the money would be spent. We're saying, yes, we're going to take the money.
Yeah.
Am I correct in that?
I think maybe so.
Tricia, could you just give it to me again?
That staff be authorized to purchase the hood vent for the Summerland attachment for a maximum of $22,000, and that the financial plan be amended accordingly.
Okay, so that would be what our financial officer addressed a little while ago.
I mean, again, it's authorized, we're authorized to do many things, but we only do them if it's logical and it makes sense, so.
May I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor? What is the urgency in this particular item?
It's because they're buying them. What we understand, and even this is limited information that we have so far, but what we understand is that they're bulk buying, and they're buying them for many detachments in the upcoming week.
How nice.
Councillor Carlson.
Do we know if the other municipalities and detachments have more information than we do?
Most probably have an equipment budget for facilities in general, and it would never come to council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Pre-planning. Okay.
We have a mover and a
Got a motion on the
seconder?
table.
I second it.
Yeah, all right. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. The motion carries, none opposed. Okay, moving ahead to 14.1.
This is just for consideration of adoption and
Yes.
third reading.
Okay.
From if you want to move forward to have discussion after the public hearing.
Okay.
The public hearing that you had today.
Right, to move forward past that, yeah. Councillor Carlson.
I will move that zoning bylaw amendment 5010 Coral Avenue, bylaw number 2017-020 be read a third time, and that the same bylaw amendment be adopted.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Trainer, thank you. Any further discussion? I think it's pretty straightforward. All in favor? Motion carries, none opposed. Thank you very much. Okay, councillor reports. Urge you to be brief. We're running into time constraints, council. If we run close to 10 o'clock, we'll have to have a motion to
Oh
extend.
my God, if we talk for another half an hour?
Believe me, we're capable. So, council report, starting with Councillor Trainer.
Mine's quick. I attended the Summerland Healthy Community Initiative monthly meeting, and I just wanted to report back that the committee is in support and eagerly awaiting to find out if we get the grant for the fitness equipment. And upcoming project for us include discussions around possibly finding a spot for a community garden down the road, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkle.
I'll give my time to Councillor Holmes so we can hear more about his Open Doors project.
Which we may shut the door on quickly here tonight.
Which means I have to talk.
Councillor, no, you don't have to talk at all if you don't want to. Councillor Booth.
I'm not going to say anything tonight, thank you.
Oh.
I know, big surprise, but.
Thank you very much.
I've got nothing to report either.
Nothing to report. Okay, Councillor Holmes.
Oh, I have lots of time.
No, you don't have lots of time, Councillor Holmes. You've had lots.
It's like Santa's list.
You know, as Councillor Barkwell mentioned, I've been spending a lot of time working on our Doors Open Summerland event on September 23rd. We have 24 properties confirmed. It is, and a few more still waiting to hear from. I'm just kind of waiting. You'll start hearing about it a lot more in the coming days. We're setting up a website, some social media stuff, and posters around town, and so all that's just all going to have to come together at the same time. And I don't know what else to say, and I'll be sending out press releases, and I'll be calling you, John, and so you'll be hearing a lot about it. And so the premise is that all these buildings around town that people don't normally have access to for one day in September, Saturday, people will be able to go and see them. And I'm just going to whip through really quick who we've got, because it's quite an impressive lineup. All right.
How about you go every third one?
No, I'll do it. That's 20. It's really quick. Okay. So first, there's the Agricultural Canada's Summerland Research Station, which is great. The Angus Orchard House, the Heritage Home, the Arts and Cultural Centre, Backyard Beans, Badminton Hall, the BC Ambulance Service. It's the ambulance station. Detonate Brewery, the Fire Department Training Center, the Food Bank, Freshwaters Fishery Society, Trout Hatchery, Lone Tree Coffee, Mission Bottle Wash, Municipal Hall, Okanagan Regional Library, the Ornamental Gardens, including the Superintendent's House, George Rica's home, SAS Studio, they've got their little workshop above the store, the service station at the Lakeside Church, Summerland Credit Union, Summerland Secondary School. Raja Gupta is going to be giving tours of the whole school, which is will be interesting. St. Stephen Anglican Church, otherwise known as the Stone Church, the water treatment plant, and the wastewater treatment plant. And then I'm waiting for confirmation on a few others.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pete.
A doors open event in the community can be lots of fun.
That's it.
I'm continued to do active liaison work with the KVR. There was a meeting of the trail, the Okanagan Committee, and they're looking at the opportunity of doing a trail ride out Garnet Valley when the construction is finished, perhaps in September, which would be a celebrational one. I attended a policing forum put on by the Superintendent Ted DeJager in Penticton, and that was an extremely well-attended event. I've had some discussion with the mayor, and we'll send along some notes. The Vice President, Sean McCarthy of the Citizens on Patrol, attended with me, and the Superintendent is interested in forming a community safety committee, and that particular individual, the Vice President, said he would be interested and left that information with the Superintendent. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Now's an opportunity for the public to speak on any particular issue they would like. And remind everybody, we have only a few minutes left till 10, and we would have to extend the meeting. So anybody would like to speak to any issue, please come forward. And you're restricted to 2 minutes apiece, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kyle Gergen, and I manage the Summerland Trout Hatchery for the Freshwater Fisheries Society of British Columbia. Since being invited by the District of Summerland to contribute to the information gathering process for the proposed development of Banks Crescent, the FFSBC has patiently waited for our concerns and questions to be addressed. One example is our request for verification that vibration-induced turbidity, which was referenced in an early proponent document, will not affect our water source. We necessarily removed ourselves from that information gathering process due to the frustration of communicating directly with the developers due to misrepresentations and misinformation provided by the LARC Group. This has accumulated into a complete lack of trust towards the LARC Group. Instead of continuing our direct correspondence with the developers, we opted to communicate directly with the District of Summerland. Part of these communications involved the development and implementation of a contingency water supply for the Summerland Trout Hatchery. Recent proponent information continues to misrepresent the complexity of outstanding issues by providing oversimplified affirmative responses, which only prompt additional questions. For example, where did the price tag of $600,000 come from, and why can't we receive water system design specifics before the approval of rezoning? Finally, it appears that the District of Summerland, as holders of the water license and owners of the water system that will both become part of the contingency water supply scenario, would therefore be responsible for any disruption to hatchery operations if water cannot be supplied when and as required by the hatchery. If the District of Summerland accepts such risks, would that acceptance be based solely on the LARC Group's consultants' opinions, interpretations, and judgments? This last question is posed since the Freshwater Fisheries Society of British Columbia understandably needs to be consulting with the party actually responsible for delivering the contingency water supply if ever required. Given that our concerns and questions have still not been adequately addressed, I'm here today representing the Summerland Trout Hatchery and the Freshwater Fisheries Society of British Columbia to officially state our opposition to the rezoning application, the proposed amendments to the official community plan, and the development as it currently stands. I am making a formal request and will be making a formal request to explain our position in more detail to Council at the next meeting scheduled for August 14th, 2017. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, councillors. My name's Richard Gallant. My wife and I have been property owners in Summerland for 30 years. I've been asked to introduce to council a new participant in the Icasa Resort Living debate. We are CSI Summerland. CSI Summerland is an acronym for Citizens Supporting Icasa. Excuse me. CSI Summerland started about a week ago and is growing each day. We now represent a broad section of the community. It includes business owners, as well as individuals who have a strong professional background in the healthcare industry. CSI has two objectives. The first is to introduce some balance into the Icasa debate. To date, most of the focus has been on negative elements of the application and on why the application should not be approved. There's been virtually no public discussion on the positive elements, more specifically the immediate and longer-term social and economic benefits this development can bring to the community. Benefits that far outweigh any development risks. In large part, they've been mitigated. CSI will not focus on the technical issues. We feel there is little utility in doing so. Those matters are best left to district engineering professionals and to freshwater fisheries to work through those issues with the applicant. CSI will be communicating orally in public forums, forums like this, through our website, which we've just launched, and through a number of articles in the media. Last week, we introduced CSI Summerland to the community in the written media and used that opportunity to extend an invitation to members of the community to join us. We have been very pleasant with the response to that invitation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gallant.
Can I have one more paragraph?
Just one, be quick, please. We're very tight for time tonight.
So our second objective is to highlight and counter some of the poor behaviors displayed by participants in this debate. These behaviors have been described by our members as rude, fear-mongering, as bullying, and as intimidation, including threats to individuals and to businesses. This negativity is overwhelming and by any standard is unacceptable. We hope to counteract that behavior by offering a safe zone, a platform, and a support structure for those people looking for a place where they can express their thoughts and feelings without fear of reprisal. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I ask that there be no responses. People have a right to speak, whether they're pro or con. I'll have no laughter at any speaker or vice versa, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Green, and I live at 5709 Century Street in Summerland. I've had to change, I had a little prepared thing, but I've had to change it now because of discussion tonight. So I just want to go back to the public question and answer session that was held in January. At the end of that session, there were a number of people who did not have an opportunity to ask questions. During the session, there were virtually no questions answered. I talked to Linda Tynan, your administrative officer, at the end of the meeting, requesting that, or asking for assurance that there would be an opportunity for those people who didn't get a chance to ask questions in that forum to have a second opportunity. And at that time, Ms. Tynan indicated that yes, there would be another opportunity. Then we had the council meeting of January the 23rd, I believe, when the proposal went to second reading, and it was my feeling or understanding during that discussion and process and that second, the second reading approved, that yes, again, there was an assurance that there would be another question and answer period before there would be the public hearing. And so I'm going to ask again that we do have a second question and answer period. There is lots of information on the website of the municipality, but a lot of that information is information as a layman that I have no idea how to interpret or understand or be able to make reasonable decisions. And the only way I'm going to get that information is having an opportunity again, prior to public hearing, to having the questions that were asked answered, and as additional questions come forward, being able to ask them. So I'm asking for another question and answer period, and please let us know when it's going to be prior to a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, my name is Marie Gallant, and I also am a resident of Summerland. It is my home and my community. I currently live off Sully Road, and my backyard from my backyard, I will be able to see the Banks Crescent development. I totally support it. I welcome it into our community. It is the kind of development that Summerland needs to help support our aging population. It gives us a new tax base. It will help us do a lot of things that need to be done in this community. For example, our rec center is 40 years old, and we need the tax base to help support that. So I just wanted to let you know that there are people out here who support the development. Thank you.
Thank you. No clapping, thank you. We'll just move ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, and members of council and members of the community. My name is Christina Lord, and I'm National Vice President with St. Elizabeth Healthcare. I'm based in Toronto, but I do have national involvement for similar types of initiatives to this one that we're discussing this evening. And I just want to reconfirm our commitment to this project and to the District of Summerland, because with an aging population, one of the positive spin-offs, or an additional positive spin-off to staffing a facility like this, will be the opportunity to provide better levels of home care and the healthcare workers that you'll require for those home care visits, to be able to service everyone and enable those who wish to live in their homes for a longer period of time to do so independently with the best possible care available. We do have best practices with healthcare. We're 108 years old. We're the largest not-for-profit healthcare agency in Canada, and also one of the largest social enterprises in North America. And being a social enterprise, what we really strive to do is give back to the community as well and ensure that we're leaving a really positive footprint as part of that community and really integrating ourselves into the community and supporting the citizens of that community. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll just introduce myself very quickly. I'm the BC representative of St. Elizabeth. I come with a number of years of seniors care and more specifically also government policy. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to come forward, please?
Good evening.
Mr. Tate.
Yes, Mayor, Waterman, Council. My name is Eric Tate, and I live at 7103 Solly Road. Just a comment on what we have just heard. St. Elizabeth may be not-for-profit, but they are fee-for-service. Am I correct? Yes, you are. So you're fee-for-service, you're not for profit. And your discussion about home care and so on, this should be borne in mind. Also, as someone has pointed out, I don't believe that your providers will have hospital privileges in Penticton or in the Central Okanagan district. So let's just bear that in mind. These wonderful services that you're going to bring to the community are services that will actually be fee-for-service, and people will be paying for them. My question really concerns the contingency water supply for the trout hatchery and the costs that are surrounding it. Now, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, the only reason that the fishery is asking for an alternate water source is because of its concern that the construction and operation of the proposed Bristol Valley development poses what it believes is an unacceptably high level of risk to the springs and the aquifer. The fishery is in no way seeking a benefit from the developer. It's simply trying to protect the hatchery, and its best case scenario, as we've heard tonight, is that the amendment isn't granted. Is that council's understanding that the fishery is actually simply trying to protect the aquifer and the springs and not looking for a benefit from the developer? Because in one of Locke's correspondences to council, it stated quite clearly that that was not their position. They believed that the fishery was exploiting the situation to try and bring in an alternate water source and have the developer pay for it. I'm assuming that council does not accept that interpretation.
Mr. Tate, I'm sure those words have never been used. There's never any suggestion that the freshwater fisheries was trying to exploit anything.
It was certainly stated by the developer in a correspondence to council, which I believe was dated April the 12th, or thereabouts. It's the one in which predated their about face, in which they said they forget that, we didn't mean it. The hatchery isn't failing. We'll go ahead and find an alternate water source. Okay, so no, my question is related to that.
You've had your 2 minutes, Mr. Tate, 2.5 minutes, as a matter of fact. Thank you, sir.
Are the costs going to be borne?
Thank you, sir.
My name is Linda Green, and I live at 5709 Century Street. On the November 16th, 2016 CHBC newscast, Mr. Mayor, you stated that ultimately the community of Summerland will decide whether this development goes ahead. In the 2014 municipal elections, the people spoke and voted in council where the most votes received by any one candidate was 2,819. Given that there are over 2,800 signatures on the petition to squash the Banks Crescent development project, does the mayor consider that the people of Summerland have indeed spoken again?
Thank you. Is there anybody else wish to speak, please? Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Barkle, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Carlson. All in favor? Thank you. Actually, I missed out on our journalists. Sorry.
Media just hasn't had a chance.
This has to do about the process around making a decision about whether having another question and answer session. And Councillor Barkwell asked that, and you expressed an opinion, which was a fairly well-explained and definite
Yes.
opinion. Are we to understand that the decision has been made, or will this be discussed by council on whether or not there will be another Q&A session?
Okay. Any councillor could bring a motion forward to propose a question and answer period, and then council would debate it at that time. So if a councillor chooses to bring a motion forward to recommend that they hold another one, then they would debate it at that time and vote on it.
Yeah, that'd be quite acceptable. I think my rationale was that I felt that during the last number of months that there's been a tremendous body of information, so it seemed almost superfluous to me, but at the same time, if a councillor brought it forward, we'd have to consider it. Okay. John, any questions? Okay. Thank you.